I'll call this 2018. I'm way off. February 18th, 2025 meeting of Board of County Commissioners to order. I'd ask if you have a cell phone or a item that makes noise, if you would put it on silent or vibrate. Appreciated that. Also, if you want to speak with the board, there's speaker cards on the back table here. If you want to fill one of those out and get it to Miss Sarah, they'll get it to me, and then I'll let you speak at the appropriate time. And with that, I'm going to ask Commissioner Hartley to announce his pastor.
Okay. We, if you would stand, Brother Brian Willingham is going to lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for the privilege that we have in this country to meet together like this. Lord, that the men standing before me can represent those that have elected them to do this, to share our voice and work on the betterment of our community. God, we thank you for that. And I just pray, God, that you give them wisdom in the proceedings tonight. Let everything that's done be done for your glory and for the benefit of everyone that lives in this county. God, we thank you for a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to raise our families. I pray that you'd always keep your hand upon us. We'll give you praise for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to our agenda items. We have Commissioner Bennett wants to move.
I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to move item number 4 from the consent agenda and put it as the top of the new business. I just want to have a short conversation about it.
New business?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other commissioners have anything? If not, I'll take a motion to approve with your changes.
Move to approve the consent agenda with the modification of the consent
Regular agenda.
as suggested.
Yes.
Are we on approval of agenda?
Yes.
Approval of agenda, yes.
Yeah.
Second. Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we're on the consent agenda. Take a motion to approve with changes.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're moving to item number 5, which is our elected officials portion. I don't see any elected officials other than one sitting up here, so we'll move past that one. We're going to our public comment section, and I have one speaker card for public comment. Do you have any more?
No, sir.
Sarah? Mr. Doug Moore.
I want to talk to the Sanderson Community Center. There's been a lot of interest. I've talked to Commissioner Mann about it, and met with Sarah on it. Anyway, it's been slow getting that project going,
Yeah.
and finding out the weather was bad certainly didn't help it. But there's a lot of interest in the community, even though our address down 229 south of the interstate is Glen St. Mary. We consider ourselves South
Sanderson.
Sanderson.
Amen.
We relate a lot better with the Sanderson community, and it's a lot of need, and therefore it's a structurally sound building that, as we know, it heats and windows and doors and that kind of stuff. And like I called you the other day, finding a commercial architect has been an issue.
Yes, sir.
So with the blessing of the commission, I've been trying to get one out for the store, because I want to do an addition on it before I open it up. That maybe try to put those jobs together and get enough interest, and whatever the architect costs for the community center, I'd like to make that donation to it, if that's okay.
You have no problem with me when you say donation.
Okay. And there's a lot of interest in other people
Yeah,
helping
right.
the community. I've heard that there's a liability issue as far as getting people to work on it and all that there. If it comes to that,
We just need to get a letter we can have a letter done, and you can just sign the
Okay.
bottom up, releasing the county of all liability. And that's
Yeah,
that's
or we
done.
got a general contracting company and we can do the job
Yeah.
for $1 or whatever it takes
Right.
and run it through there.
Right.
So we're covered.
Yeah, as long as we cover the counties for the liability, we have no problem with that. And we can do that through a letter. That can be done through a letter.
Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
had one that we used for,
Volunteers.
We use it for
That
volunteers.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So that-
Whatever it takes to get this project
Oh, yeah.
moving, there's a lot of interest in it.
And that's a great idea, because you might can get an architect with 2 projects, because you definitely can't get one for one
No,
small.
it's been a struggle.
It's great.
If it ain't a big job anymore.
If it ain't, that's right. It's just,
Well,
there
I'm
goes so
trying to
much
get
work
A
out
friend of
there.
mine that owns a AAA construction school in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at twisting arms, so he's in the process of that right now.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get some action shortly.
It's good with me, as long as the board's good with it, well, I'm fine with it.
I'm good.
Okay? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very
Thanks for
much,
what
Doug.
you're doing out there. Appreciate it. It definitely needs to be done in the community. Okay, we'll move, I got one more public comment card just came in. Jessica Champion Manning.
Good afternoon.
Could you say your name and address and all for the
Yes,
record,
My name
please?
is Jessica Manning. My address is 7293 Blair Circle, in St. Mary, Florida. I'm here today to ask you guys, because I'm not sure if this is the right committee, but I'm going to talk to anybody with any kind of authority about an issue. I have a medically complex, fragile child that is, she's too sick to stay at home per se, but not sick enough for a hospital. North Florida has absolutely nowhere for our children to go that we can be with them. So the state decided it was best for my child to be placed hundreds of miles away in a nursing home in Largo, 4.5 hours away. I would like to see if you guys can help somehow come together and maybe construct a facility for families in North Florida that have kiddos like mine, that a facility basically where is not focusing on end of life care, somewhere that would be more, it takes care of their medical, but a quality of life care. My daughter's 17 years old, sir, and she's having to look across the hall at people dying every day. It's breaking my heart, and I have no other options. And I mean, I really want my child home, but there's no services at all for complex children in North Florida. I just wanted to run that by everyone, see if anybody at all can do anything.
Miss Sarah,
at
can
all.
you get her Chuck and Senator Bradley's number?
Thank you.
They would be ideal contacts for you to sit down with the state legislator, because they control like Northeast Florida.
Yes, sir.
And that would be a great contact for you to have the same conversation with. And I know what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
So it's very hard, but they are really the ones that could help in this situation, I believe.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Congresswoman Kat Kamick is actually in Baker County tonight
That
at
would
the
be
courthouse at 6 p.m. And she
Right
would be
across.
perfect to hear that from
Yeah.
you as well. And that's what she's here, is to hear those types of issues in our area. So if
If-
you're available, you've got less than an hour,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're right here on the block already
Yeah.
to go speak directly to a congresswoman about
Literally
that.
right next
Thank
door.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Great idea. I forgot about her being there. Your officials are here.
Never hurts to get support from everybody.
Yeah, definitely. But yes, sir, I can contact Ms. Manning with that contact information for her state representatives as well.
Okay, I have no other speakers cards, and but I have Mr. Chris Doolin here from Tallahassee with Small County Coalition, one of our partners, and he's got a couple of presentations he needs to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's amazing the scope of issues that county commissions have to deal with, as evidenced by just the public testimony today. I wanted to come over for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to say congratulations to Mr. Mobley and Mr. Mann. Welcome aboard.
Mr. Chris, can you hold on just 1 second? Is the sound low tonight, or is it just
Yes.
me? I can't
Oh,
hear.
the air running.
It's just, I can't, no, don't turn
Don't
the
turn
air
the air off. Turn the sound up.
It should be
I
maxed
know
out.
Chris
but
can talk louder, so just speak a
If
little
you will,
bit.
just make sure.
I
that-
thought it was just my hearing.
I was thinking about the same thing when you were talking as well.
I can't hear.
Critical,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you want me to start over?
Please.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. My affiliation with the county is twofold. One, it's through the Small County Coalition. This organization was created back in 1989 when legislators came to us. We represented school districts as well, small school districts. And they said, we need an organization that will come forward and address small county issues. Well, since that time, and the theory of it is this. In the Florida legislature, you have 40 senators, probably 17 of them represent a portion of a small county. In the House, probably 27 or so deal with small counties. So we put together a common agenda, road funding, environmental funding, fiscally constrained funding. When the state takes an action to increase your costs through a piece of legislation, oftentimes we're able to go in under the fiscally constrained definition and secure an offset. So, and we've done that. And Baker County is one of the 40. There are 29 fiscally constrained, but there are 40 small counties that are members of ours. So I'm here in that regard, and I have a special purpose in that regard. The second role that I have here is probably 15 years ago, when the legislature wanted to privatize NEFISH, and you guys kicked into gear and came up with a coordinated plan and basically charged Tallahassee, and they began to figure out the importance of an institution like NEFISH to this community.
Happened last year again, too.
Well, it did. Now, don't jump ahead of me now. This is my time.
I wish it was just 15 years ago.
You could ask me a question. Did this happen last year? Yes, it did. So, and that's the reason I'm here. 2 reasons. The action that you took last year was a result of proviso language being put in the governor's proposed budget to begin to privatize NEFISH again. You stumble on these things, okay? You see them, I mean, they're 400 pages. You stumble on these things, and you guys picked that up. You immediately came over. I had a little bit to do with it, not a lot, just moving the ships in the harbor. But we, the Small County Coalition, we recognize a couple counties as kind of model exercises. And what you did last year was you avoided what was going to be a very significant and detrimental issue to you prior to the legislature even starting. Senator Bradley and Representative Brennan got with Representative Garrison, and he pulled together the chair and the vice chair and basically assured the county that, yeah, we're going to look in the future. This is not over, but to the extent that it's directly going to privatize, he assured you that nothing was going to happen last year. So what we've done is, on this little piece of parchment paper, Baker County Board of County Commissioners for outstanding leadership by a commission, and that's the commission taking care of business, for outstanding leadership successfully securing commitments to protect Northeast Florida State Hospital from being privatized, June 2024. Should have presented this last summer. It's for last year, but I wanted to come over and do that. And we'll take a picture here in a second if that's okay. The second thing that kind of happened last year, and I want to talk about this just briefly because some people don't understand or the issue of term limits, okay? I mean, term limit Congress, term limit the state's term limited. Now they term limited school board members. Well, last year they came across with a proposal that the Florida legislature, not by a constitutional amendment, but by an action of the Florida legislature, they were going to pass an 8-year term limit on county commissioners. Okay, fine. We're not trying to protect you from getting defeated or anything like that. What we're trying to protect is the citizens' right to choose what kind of organizational structure and terms they want to have for their own county commissioners. If you want it, have at it. If there's a referendum locally, have at it. If you want to prevent someone from running again after 8 years, have at it. But it shouldn't be the legislature doing that by statute. And the other option would have a constitutional amendment, which would have statewide impact. Do we want Dade, Broward, Hillsborough, Pinellas overrunning all these small counties that, in many instances, first of all, we don't have a problem with replacing people. I mean, people get replaced. Some die. Some, so the bottom line is data will bring forward. So I'm not here to educate anybody that term limits are a bad thing. I'm here to say that what our position was is that the legislature shouldn't do it to you. You should be given the opportunity to do it to yourself, the people, if they want to do that. Jimmy, Commissioner, the chairman, was one of about 12 people that came over and testified on the bill. Now, it's not in this context of a political environment, sometimes people are trying, may think, oh, they're just trying to protect themselves. That's not the issue. None of the commissioners came up. 13, 14 of them came from your small counties, and they were concerned about it. So we did a second plaque this summer for about those 12 county commissioners, and this one is a special recognition for legislative advocacy to Jimmy Anderson for leadership and support on behalf of small counties during the 24 legislative session. They tried to cut Visit Florida. Jimmy came over then. Others, I'm not just saying y'all didn't, because everybody's busy and stuff like that, but you were represented, and it was a leadership thing. You've always responded to the call on the coalition. Now, legislature starts in 2 weeks from today. We got a week off next week, so your legislators will be home, but they'll be packing for the next few days, the next 60 days. March 18th through 20th. It's going to be a pretty important week. You got county days, you got school districts in town, and you got Rural Counties Day. Rural Counties Day, it's probably the 6th year we've done this, and we're just an ancillary part of it. It's the Economic Development Group, FREDA, that does that. But on the 19th, there'll be a reception. But really, the 20th, if you've been there before, and many of you have, 40 counties or 30 or so put booths up in between the old and the new Capitol, and they give people the opportunity to just see you. Now, I'll stop there. I mean, I think it's a good thing. They have a fish fry. Everybody's welcome. Legislators come out, so that's all a good thing. Now, the legislature this year, there's going to be some pretty significant things going on. One is it relates to sovereign immunity, okay? Right now, you have liability for injuries that are caused by a public employee or things like that. Right now, if there's an individual injured, you have a cap of $200,000 that you can settle. And then you go to a claims bill, and if you support it, then it goes through the legislature and you can pay in excess of a claim. If the incident has multiple injuries, right now the cap is $300,000. Well, there's a bill now to go to $1 million and $3 million. That's going to have a significant, whether you have a claim or not, your insurance rates are going to increase. That's just one thing. Now, what I've tried to pick out is that's a 500% increase on the individual claim, and it's like a 1,000% increase, not dollars, but just the gap. And so we're meeting tomorrow. I've communicated. So that's one of those things. And then in general, preemptions really they pull you out of oversight of comp plans, permits, things of that nature. Obviously, you don't want to stall economic development. You're going to do what you can on good economic development. But an outright preemption on things where you can't comment, whether it's a solar field or whether it's affordable housing adjacent to a commercial property, anything like that. Well, I'm getting into too many details, but I'm just telling you, now, good thing, the leadership. Senator Albritton from Wauchula, he just took over as Senate President. He's come out with a rural renaissance package. We haven't seen the guts of it yet, but I'm sure there's going to be increases, transportation, environment, things of that nature, incentives for economic development, things that pertain to school districts. So we're waiting, and I think once he comes forward with that, we have some good things to look forward to. So that's my public comment. I would like to get the commission up front, if we can. I don't know how you do pictures, but
I was gonna say, if you guys could actually, if you could come up here, the
okay.
lighting is better. You get shadows on your face if you go down front.
I'd be glad to answer your
You come up here, and I'll go down there. I'll get with you guys tomorrow, okay?
And you don't pay me by the word. We couldn't afford it. All right, where's the vice chair?
Let's slide this way a little bit, because it's right here to the center. You're good, you're right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got it. You've done this before. I've done this.
All right.
All right?
Okay, sure. All right, ready, guys?
All right.
Press,
All right, now,
press, go.
now,
Yeah, I'm sorry, the press is still with.
okay, now let us step out of the way and let y'all get this one.
Okay.
That's for, that's for him.
We've done this before.
I will treat these at families. It's okay, true. I'll take that too.
All right, Jimmy, thank you so much for that. And I hope the public understands that the relationship that your local government has with the state and federal government is very important, and there's a collaborative relationship.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Thanks, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to meet you. Yes, sir.
See you in March. I hope.
Sure, already full. This one's mine, I think. It's cool. Cheers, cheers, chair.
Thank you, Chris. You hang around if you want.
Yeah, I'm glad to.
We want to thank Chris too for everything he does for us in Tallahassee. He keeps us appraised of a lot of things that comes through Baker County that we would never see if it wasn't for Chris. You can see that phone ringing, you know there's something going on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to echo the same thing. One of the things I will say about Chris is I've been on here a little while now, and when things come up that are of great concern for the county, he will quickly reach out to us to make sure that we are fully aware of it, as well as give us some recommendations on what we need to do and how to address it. So I appreciate that guidance and counsel from him on a regular basis. So appreciate what you do for us, Chris.
And I'll tell the other two commissioners, great asset.
Mm-hmm.
Use it. All right, we'll move along in our agenda item. I don't have any more public comments. I do see that our elected official has walked in. If she wants to speak, I'll go back. Thank you. We'll move into our next one, which is TDC funding request. Mr. Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me say up front, I am not opposed to what's being requested here. But what I am concerned is this is coming to us after the fact.
Yes, sir.
The fact is, from my perspective, they've already had to make commitments in order to have the services and provide those services. So they already had to locate the funds, receive the money in order to be able to do that. I don't think they made commitments for expenditures that they didn't have money to cover it. So now that we're after the fact, the expenditures occurred, they're coming back to us now asking for this. What happens to this money? The event is over. So what happens to these funds? Have they been committed or obligated for payments or what? Because that's what my curiosity is if it was already done and it's after the fact, then why are now they coming asking for money now if it was already done? And the
Yes, sir.
services were rendered and
Yes, sir.
committed
So
to.
it's my understanding from Mr. Dickinson that this, and they did come before the TDC before the event. Unfortunately, with our timing of the way our meetings are, it is after the event for you all. But it is my understanding from Mr. Dickinson that this money was planned for this year and is needed for this event. That there are items in current year for current event that they needed to fund out of these funds.
Well, I will tell you, I don't mind supporting it now, but I will have to tell you, be on record for any events in the future, if they don't have a budget, they don't have a plan, they don't come and ask before they make the commitment, I am not going to be in support of funding things after the fact. This is an annual event. It certainly wasn't a surprise. They know it's coming. There was ample time to make the request ahead.
Yes, sir. And for transparency, the TDC board recommended that to them as well when
okay,
this
well,
was presented to
I
them.
didn't know that, but that's fine. I just
So it was presented before,
the
They
TDC.
did appear before the TDC before the event.
us after.
And I
Yes,
can
sir.
tell you a little on this, because I am on this, I go to the CSO meetings. A lot of this has to do with the state. There's a lot of agencies involved in this. It's just not that one committee that has to do a listing. And you have to get funding from this, Then they have to decide if they'll pay for this, they'll pay for that. So it's a daunting task to try to get all those agencies. You got the state, you got the federal, because it's different lands there, and this one pays for this one pays for that. They have to wait for state approval, and if you know how the state works, sometimes you don't get quick answers. So sometimes they have to wait to prepare this budget. So that was one of the reasons that can kind of delay the process. But believe me, the funds are needed. Sunday was not a very good day again because of the rain. Costs a lot of money to do it, but a lot of people come. I talked to hundreds of people, and they're all from somewhere else. So your income is coming. They're staying in hotels. So
Well, I am, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great project. I just think this should have been presented beforehand. So I'm not opposed to it. And I'll support a motion to approve the funding. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that these, and I understand what you're saying.
And I think
Ms.
they
Kisner?
do understand that.
I
They're
just-
going to work
Okay.
toward that. Yes.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to our next item, which is number 1, approval of the St. Mary's River Committee Annual Report. Mr. Norton.
Commissioners, I'm also on the TDC, and I did ask Gary Dickinson at the last to present maybe a little earlier next year, just to get through the process. I think Mark remembers, and Sarah also remembers that. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Danny Norton. I'm your representative on this committee. Ed Barber normally makes this report, and I'm just filling in. He'll be back. I'll be brief on this 2024 annual report from the St. Mary's River Management Committee pertaining to Baker County. Page 1, Baker County Boat Ramp. We're waiting for FEMA funding on that. Shoals Park, the National Park Service, RTCA, visited the park in October and was impressed with the park. Although the park did suffer some damages last year from the hurricane. Page 8, City of McClenny, Phase 2, replacement and relining of sewer lines should be completed this summer. There will be more phases to complete with this task. Page 14 is the breakdown of how we spent your money, the money that you give us. And the full report is in the packet. So, any questions from the board?
Any questions or comments from the board from Mr. Norton?
Thank you, Mr. Norton.
No comments. I'll take, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve your report.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Norton.
I would like to say about the Rural County Days, a lot of y'all have went over there. It's a good thing. Kind of put it in your schedule. I think Daryl's already got the dates. They see you, and
That's
that's
good.
what you want. You want them to see you.
That's right.
And I try to go, and we set up a booth, and
You and your wife do a great job.
yeah,
over
we
there.
hand out stuff. We hand out trees. We hand out whatever we can hand out to make sure Baker County and City of McClenny is known over there, and it does work.
It does
really
work.
does.
It
It
does.
really does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 2, approval of the purchase of BC ambulance. Mr. Nelson, Chief, how are you doing?
Good evening, Commissioners. You have before you an item request for purchase of a new ambulance. This was already worked through the budget process. We reached out to 3 different vendors, one our current vendor that we normally use, and a couple other vendors. 10-8, which makes the same trucks Jacksonville uses, and then Hunter Apparatus, which has a truck built called Frazier Ambulance, which is we went and looked at the trucks. They're actually made. Swanee County's been using them for 18 years, and their price actually came back a lot better. We had budgeted $375,000, and their price came in at $353,350. So we'd like to move forward with them.
What's the lead time on these, Chief?
18 to 24
That's what I was
months.
wondering.
18 months.
Yes, sir.
Good, not-
And that was all 3 manufacturers. We checked with all of them. so.
yeah.
So we can make the commitment this year, we'll have probably 2 years of budgets before we actually get the equipment, because we won't pay this, will we? When will we have to make payment?
I believe that we have to start making them immediately, correct?
We have to make a portion now and date of receipt for the remaining.
Do we know how much we have to pay down?
We don't know the percentage.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
another question I have here is, I have a little bit of concern with the $10,500 contingency into a quote. What is a contingency for?
Contingency is when we go over and making sure that everything is in there. I think mainly a lot of that is travel
For who?
for our personnel to go and
It shouldn't, with all due respect, the company should not be putting a contingency in for our team to travel.
that's normally the way it's built into the process.
I'm going to have an issue with putting contingency in a project that we don't know what it's for, or what, and I don't know why we are front-end loading your travel and training to go to visit that. If we have to go to make some inspections and things, that's one thing.
That's
But it shouldn't be in their bid. They should not be deciding how much we spend for you guys to go over.
Yes,
They shouldn't be. We shouldn't be front-ending $10,500 in a quote for contingency that we don't know what it's for.
Yes, sir.
That one I can't support, because you don't put contingency in a bid. Contingency is something that if you have a project, we can approve a contingency that gives the ability to add or something if we needed to, if there was some unknown, something happened. But I have problems with putting contingencies, and I certainly don't agree with a customer putting a $10,500 contingency in this, because that's what we are paying off of.
Yes, sir.
And what happens if we don't use all of that?
Right.
What happens if we've now entered into a contract to pay them a contingency for a contingency fund for travel?
Yes, sir.
That's a new one on me.
Just explanation on the travel is that we were going to send over some of our personnel that helped come up with the idea for the truck as far as how it's designed in the pre-build, and you sit down and it takes a full day to sit down with the manufacturer and look at the factory tour and everything, and then you have to go back for the inspection of the vehicle final, and then bring the vehicle back to Florida. So it's part of that. That's part of the $10,500. And then obviously if you get over there and you see something that's not included in the pricing, there's a little bit of money in there that's like just a small amount of money in case there's an event that say that something that you saw in the factory that was not exactly as you had planned. So
Yeah, and again, here's how that can be viewed by the public. We're putting a $10,500 slush fund to be able for you guys and whichever to go over and take a look at whatever, and they're going to spend up to $10,500 on treating staff or whatever they want. It doesn't come across right to me to be able to do that. I'm not opposed to having a certain percentage approved by the board.
Yes, sir.
For us to have the authority to amend if there's something that's needed to be added to it. But the contractor should not be paying for you guys to travel there, paying for your hotels, paying for your food, paying for all that as part of as part of the construction cost.
Right.
That's not how it should be done.
Yes, sir.
I'm making trips to Ireland for work.
Yes, sir.
I did not bill it to the company is not putting me up and paying for it. When I go, we pay for our expenses. To me, this is not the way to do business.
So would we just, if we eliminate that portion and then we just take care of the travel ourselves through our process?
I can go with that. I just don't think it
Okay.
should be into a contract.
That's
So
fine.
I could support if we deduct that $10,500 out of this.
Yes, sir.
I can support the bid to move forward with that, but I
Okay.
just don't think it's appropriate to put contingency under contract.
Not to harp just on Fraser, it looks like that's in every single proposal.
It is, yes, sir.
To
They
go
all
and up.
added into the travel, that's part of the package.
Gotcha.
It's like an
So-
industry standard for whatever reason.
Okay.
So is that in the form of a motion?
I'll make it as a motion. I approve approve the purchase of the ambulance with the deduction of the travel in that bid.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Go get us
Thank you,
an
sir.
ambulance.
Yes, sir.
All right. Moving on, next item on the agenda, which is Mr. Lee. Approval of Nursery Boulevard paving.
Good afternoon again. Okay, tonight I come to you for Nursery Boulevard paving from US 90 to the power lines, which is basically what's left of the road in the circle to complete Nursery Boulevard, so the entire thing will be paved. This is for the construction to Wilkes Site Prep for $662,245.09, and the CEI to Locklear and Associates for $33,000.
Didn't we just approve something on this?
We approved
The funding agreement
funding
with
agreement
FDOT.
at the
That's
last
what it
meeting.
was. Okay, I knew we had just did
Yes,
something
sir.
on this one.
How far is this? I mean, how much is it paving? Quarter of a mile? Or?
Yeah, .27, I think. 'Cause it's only a short. It's only the dirt portion is the only part they're doing.
About
The
a half
base
a mile.
bid, huh?
It's a half a
think
mile
it's
is
a
what
half
the
mile?
contract says.
Yeah, I think that's for the entire part from 90 down to the other, and we went over budget on that, so they went to the alternate bid, and it's basically just the dirt part.
Bringing the dirt to pavement.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's expensive.
Everything's
expensive.
expensive.
So do we,
What's the pleasure?
do we need to put two different motions on here because we're asking for one for approval of the bids and two for the approval of the Locklear? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve as presented the contract for Wilkes Site Prep in the amount of
662.
24509.
It's the alternate bid.
okay, $662,245.
Yeah.
09 cent.
Have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I move we approve the $33,000 for Locklear and Associates.
Have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Lee.
you.
All right. Approval of quotes, Anderson Community Center, well, Ms. Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've talked about this project several times over the last few commission meetings. Unfortunately, the well at the Sanderson Center needs to be completely replaced. It cannot be repaired. So we were able to receive 3 quotes in accordance with our purchasing policy for this project. We are making a recommendation for the low bid to Rollersonville LLC in the amount of $13,500. This is for a 4-inch well. Mr. Rollerson stated that upon approval, he would start the job immediately and it would take approximately 3 to 4 days to complete. You can see there are some, the other backups are there from the other proposals that we received. But again, staff recommends the low bid award of $13,500 to Rollersonville for this project. And we can fund this out of our community center operations budget.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're going to stay with you, Ms. Sarah. Approval
sir.
of the Extension Office flooring contract.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. There is one agenda item request form, but actually 2 documents for this, so I'm going to summarize them, but we will need 2 separate motions on this. So just to update everybody, we are undergoing a renovation at the Extension Office thanks to a State of Florida grant. We originally received $675,000 for this project. We had about $35,000 in engineering that was done, and then the base bid to plumb level construction was approved about 6 months ago in the amount of $436,488. And we've had 1 change order since that time of $11,200. So from that original set of work, we have $192,312 left in our grant fund. So we've got a significant amount of money left. Presented before you tonight is a flooring contract with Mannington Commercial in the amount of $72,715.46. That is a state of Florida commercial contract pricing, and we have gone moisture testing and all of the things necessary to make sure that we're doing the right flooring and the right base with this project. So we're ready to move forward with that project, again within budget. After this portion of the project is funded, you have a remaining balance of $119,596.54 still remaining in the grant fund. So the second item we would like you to consider tonight is a change order to the original contractor, Plum Level Construction, and that's second. It's not attached to your sheet, it's the second sheet there. And that's in the amount of $7,250. And that's just some additional work that needs to be done. There's some paneling in a hallway next to the meeting room, and some patch work that needs to be done. You can see that on attachment A. It's really nothing extravagant at all. Some more patchwork that needs to go on some paneling that was removed. Some sliding windows that were severely outdated needs to be updated, along with a drywall repair. Some painting in the hallway and foyer, and a new door on the west hallway, and then again painting and door trim to that door. So as we move through this project, because we've done so well on the budget, there were some things that were excluded that we believe we can put back into the scope of work, and that's some of those from the original plan that we were looking at today. So at this time, again, so there's adequate money, even with both of these. If they were approved tonight, you still have $112,000 remaining in your grant for work that can continue to be done there. We are working with staff to identify the other needs that are there, and we'll bring that back before you. But we certainly want to make sure that we get everything taken care of while we have this money, and well within budget, of course. So at this time, again, staff is recommending approval on two separate action items, please. Mannington Commercial for the flooring in the amount of $72,715.46, and a change order to Plum Level Construction in the amount of $7,250.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, through the chair. Sarah, even after we use these two, after we approve this new one, as well as potentially amend and change order the second one,
Yes, sir.
how much funding will be remaining?
$112,346.54.
And what is our plan to address that?
We are working on a plan to bring you back some more improvements. We're just not finished with those estimates and things yet.
Okay.
Have we looked at the existing windows on the building?
Yes, sir.
That is something that needs to be addressed because of the energy efficiency of the windows in there now or nothing.
Yes, sir. I believe the contract included replacement of all of those except for what was in the change order, but I'll verify that.
Make sure all of them
Yes,
windows
sir.
get replaced in that building because it's in bad shape.
Yes, sir. It really looks great if you guys have a chance to go
I've
by
checked
there.
it out, but just want to make
The
sure.
bathrooms look fantastic.
Yeah.
So no more 1960s in the auditorium
I'm
anymore. I
anxious
think
to see
everyone
the
will be
kitchen
really,
too.
I kind of
really
like the old
impressed.
style. Yeah.
They are now
The
ADA
knees
compliant.
and the chest kind of bathrooms.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the flooring contract to Mannington Commercial for the amount of $72,715.46 as presented.
Second.
A motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order to Plum Level Construction in the amount of $7,250.
Second.
A motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We move to our next item. Award of RFQ 2014-18 FEMA Disaster Assistance. Ms.
Yes, sir.
Sarah?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So the staff did advertise RFQ 2024-18 several weeks back, seeking the formal solicitation for a respondent for the development and submission of our FEMA grant applications. As you guys are aware, every 2 weeks we get to hear from our emergency management folks in here. It is a very time-consuming process to manage this work. We have had the benefit of the state sending out some extra help over the last couple months, but unfortunately that was not a permanent solution. But to be able to continue helping us through this process, the county did seek qualified firms to help us, like I said, with all the data submission that is needed. This it does come at a cost to the county. However, that cost can be submitted to FEMA for reimbursement as part of your claim. So you can see from our agenda item request form, we actually did receive 7 proposals, which was a great response. We were really excited about that. We don't often see that big of a response, so we were appreciative of that. Myself, as well as Mr. John Blanchard and Mr. Dennis Schmidt, were your review team. We did review all of those proposals, and we have ranked the highest firm of Thomas Howell Ferguson. And we do recommend entering into a contract with Thomas Howell Ferguson. We do have representation from that firm here tonight. If you have any questions specific for them, they're a great team of people. We're familiar with them. We're really happy to be bringing them on board. Very qualified team of people for sure. Again, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Staff recommends award to Thomas Howell Ferguson for this project.
Yes, sir.
Who serves as the project manager for this?
Mr. Blanchard, I believe, will be listed as the project manager, as EM director.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the recommendation to award to Thomas Howell Ferguson as presented.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And move on to item number.
One comment
Yes,
on that one.
yes.
As this thing progresses, what is the plan? Will we get updates periodically? How will we know where we're at with this? Is this going to be part of your regular updates of where we're at with these? Perfect. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item on there, which is Mr. Blanchard. Update. There you go.
Ask and you shall receive.
Johnny on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I like quickness.
It's a good setup.
Couldn't have planned that better.
It was timing is everything. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much for having us back. What you have, you should have a packet before you. Dennis and I are both going to give you some updates here. I'm going to give you some of the highlights, which is the first page, which there's a front and a back to that first page. Wanted you to, we talked about some of the great work that we've been doing in the community. It's been a team effort, obviously, and something that has not been done in a while, definitely in Baker County. But we want to show you the impact of not only what the storm did, but what we're doing to recover and make things better in Baker County. The first item there, when we talk about response and resources, one of the resources we had come in was the National Guard with some skid steers and about 20-plus crew members to come and help with clearing the roadways. They were here for 2 days to help us with that, and obviously we had other staff of ours and the county that was helping them do that, but we actually had 25-plus people with their skid steers and their equipment to come in and help. That value right there, if you look at it, was $90,000 for 2 days. That if we had to pay for that type of service to come in and assist us. So that was a huge impact just with that one item. As we move down, the next grouping right there was the pods, which is a point of dispensing, where we gave out food and water in several locations over a course of a couple of different days. And obviously our team members, it wasn't just us, but it was obviously some of our partners here, the American Red Cross, the value that they brought in was over $27,000 to the community. You look at Salvation Army, it was $2,000 worth of services that they brought into us, which is basically food and water. Farm Share, look at that, $21,000. Feeding Northeast Florida was $10,000. Florida Department of Emergency Management, and that's what we operate a computer system with, which is where we put in requests for MREs and other things like that, including water. That's $58,000 that the state provided to us, along with the partners, with that total value of over $119,000. And this is round numbers. We probably did more than this. But that just shows the impact on the few food giveaways that we did here. It was very valuable, and a lot of our citizens really appreciated that. We didn't have one location. We had multiple locations around the county that we did this. If you go back down, we talked about the services we need where people come in to help with our paperwork and that stuff. We had 3 different groupings of people. One was Ernst & Young, which is still participating with us. Their staffing was over $270,000 that we have. All right, Thomas Howell Ferguson, which was also sent here by the state. Okay, that's how we first met them.
if you look at their value, there's $180,000. The document L specialist, that was some people to come in with some specific document needs that we had, that was $2,500. If we had to pay out of pocket for that type of service, we're looking at almost $450,000, but if you think about it, there's truly almost $500,000 worth of services that we brought in the community for help. Okay, that's a huge value. Now, you've been hearing about us talking about projects. There's a lot of projects. I'm gonna have Dennis come up and talk about some of them, and I know we're running out of time with some of this stuff, but it's an important impact on our roads especially that we've had here. Chris in the road department has been a great value with trying to get some of these things done. One of the issues that we wanted to bring up, we talked about documentation and training, and that's why we talked about the EM 101 on trying to get all of our partners in the county level with what are their roles and responsibilities for these pre and post storm, not just in the gray skies, but also before the storm happens. We've identified in documentation to some degree almost $350,000 worth of damages because we don't have all the documentation necessary on different levels, whether it's pictures or what we call a 214 or some of these things. We're really only going to realize $71,000 of that back currently. We're still digging into that to try and find more stuff. Okay, but at face value, with all of our team working together to try and find some of these things. So some of the best practices were maybe not being followed, so we're doing some education on the backside of that. Okay, but that's county-wide with the roads. There were over 250 roads that were affected, but some of the process may not have been done, and we can drill down in that later, but that's what we're looking at right now. That right now we're only looking at $71,000 back on that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
One I appreciate the effort of everybody to get here. But this is one of the things that what I see on here is about $270,000 that we didn't get, that we could have gotten.
Yes, sir.
And that's where one of the things that we need to make sure we're looking at is having processes in place, especially after a storm, that we know what is needed and we take that little bit extra step to get it, because that little bit extra step may have very well brought in $270,000 here to the county that we're actually not getting now. And that's one of the things that I would expect on any future storm events, that whatever is eligible, we get 100% of it, not 20% of 25% of it.
Yes, sir, and that's our goal, and that's why we're having some of these trainings, and it's not just with the commission, it's with our partners to help put those systems in place to make sure that doesn't.
Well, I'm not being critical because this is our first time through. I'm just stating that this is how this looks, and that's what I'm saying. We just need to make sure we understand what's needed next time to ensure that we get the full value. Because we can always use that federal money. I'm glad to take all that federal money if we can do a little bit more documentation that causes us to get it. That's why I say let's make sure we put some effort ahead of time to know what is needed before it's too late.
Most certainly, yes, sir. And just reaching down a couple of these, because you're going to hear about these projects for months as we go through and talk about them. The value that we have there is $1 million at the Box 23A culvert. That's going to be a huge one. Moving down to the next one at Kirkland Branch, that's $755,000. Shoals Park, and that's cumulative with Shoals Park, that's almost $500,000, $482,000. The boat ramp, that's another one that we'll be talking about. It's almost $900,000. Steel Bridge Road, it's a little over $600,000. Turner Cemetery Bridge, again, that's almost $500,000. Blackjack and Persimmon, that particular road system right there, we're looking at $13,000. And the overall emergency preparedness we're looking at, that value for the assistance that staffing and going out and working the storm was $67,000. The sheriff's office has $24,000 in there. So if you look at the total just for that storm, it's almost $5 million that we're looking at getting a lot of that back in that particular case. Now moving on to the next storm, which was Helene.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yes, sir.
And we'll go into Helene after our public hearing. We have a public hearing at 6 o'clock, and I want to start that at 6 o'clock.
Perfect, yes,
So
sir.
if you'll come back up We'll start on Helene.
Most certainly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm gonna have a 5-minute recess. We have a 6 o'clock public hearing. Go back into our regular meeting, and then we're gonna start our public hearing. It's the first reading, so tonight, there'll be no decisions made by the board, but we're here to listen and listen only, make comments. And anyone in the public can make comments on these items too. And we're gonna turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The two items I have for you tonight, they are companion items, so if it's okay with you, I'll present them together just for a little bit of
Efficiency.
time saving. Yes, yes. So again, both of these applications are for first reading, so no action required. The two applications we have in front of you, they are for ordinance number 2025-01, a small-scale land use amendment. The request is from agricultural B to very low-density residential. The companion application is for ordinance number 2025-02, a rezoning. The request is from Ag 75 to residential, conventional, and mobile home 1. This parcel is located off of Reed Stafford Road, at the intersection of Fred Perry. It's across the street. It currently has 1.37 acres and is owned by Mr. Vernon Purvat and some other family members. So you'll see in the presentation and on the property appraiser's website, it says Mr. Vernon Purvat's name. Just for clarity, the staff reports that you see say Darla Durrance. She is listed on the property as well as his child, and she's actually the one making application. But like I said, his name was listed first on the deed, so when you pull it up online, you do see his name first. So just wanted to kind of explain that. Again, the current land use is Ag B, current zoning is Ag 75. This parcel used to be a much larger parcel. And what is left here on this 1.37 acres is Mr. Purvat's home site. Years back, he gave several family lots to children and grandchildren, starting back in around the early 2000s. So the last division of this property, he did not go through the family lot process. He just deeded over acreage to an immediate family member. So because he did not follow the process that needed to be followed, it left him with this resulting non-conforming lot. So he now is going through the process to make some improvements to the home, and when the bank reached out for a buildable lot letter, we were unable to provide that because of the situation we have here. So the property owner's intention is to bring the parcel into compliance so that they can do some remodeling. You'll see most everything around, immediately surrounding the parcel is the Ag B and Ag 75. There is one piece of Ag 5, and then just down the street there is a cluster of RCMH 2.5 with some lower density residential over there. So in this area, if you look around, there is kind of a wide variety of parcel sizes in this area. Most of which have been created by family lots or were passed on through family. The applicant's request would result in a conforming lot, and staff recommends approval, and LPA recommended approval as well. And Ms. Durrance is here if you have any questions for her.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair, quick question for you. This is 1.37 acres, and you're wanting to go to RCM1. Okay, so at the end of the day, all it does is bring it into compliance.
Yes.
They cannot add any more structure, any more residents or anything else. It's just
That's
allowing
correct.
this to be compliant so they can do whatever they need to. Okay.
That's correct.
All right, just want to be clear. Thank you.
Any comments from anyone in the public? Any other comments or questions from anyone on the board?
One other question for clarity. You said previously there was, after not counting family lots that had been done previously, there was something else was separated off.
Yes, in the last couple of years, he had split the parcel to a grandchild.
But
And
this is part of the original one, right? The home place is his
This is-
original.
this is his
All the
original.
right, but
Yes.
this is the original place that he's retained.
yes, this
Okay,
is his
thank you.
original piece. He did add children's name to the property with him, but
Gotcha. That's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
No other comments, no other questions, no one from the public. We'll close our public hearing. We're going back into our regular scheduled meeting. Mr. Blanchard?
All right, and we are back.
We are back.
All right, if you would look at the second page, and we moved on to, this is for Helene. So the first section you'll see there, this is for the Baker County Fire Department. And you see the amount there, $10,000. And we had originally talked about the fire department and the sheriff's office were the two people that were going to be trying to collect money. We received some, as we asked for documentation, Cheryl was nice enough to forward us quite a bit of documentation. As we were going through it, we found out there were some other documents related to maybe some things that we could claim that appeared to be outside the fire department. So we're in the process of still looking at that to make sure that these are things we want to claim. Some have to do with some overtime with the road department, and a couple of other specific purchases were done. So we're still looking to see if there's some things that we can claim outside of the fire department based on all that documentation we got. We've got to go through it to verify some of that stuff. So again, that amount right now is $10,000, basically $10,500. The sheriff's office, we've completed that information, and that's in the amount of $41,000. So obviously the storm at this point, based on what we see, doesn't necessarily have the same amount of claims available, but we still have a mountain of paperwork we're going through in that particular storm. And we got a lot of set of eyes to look at that. The next part I wanted to bring up, Dennis, and he's actually going to work through some of the projects and where we're standing with them. One of the things that we are needing for the projects are scopes of work. I know we've had conversations with Ms. Sarah about that. She was reaching out to some engineers that we have for the county, and they've not been forthcoming with helping us with that. And we've been trying since December. So maybe now that we've got another group on board, we can help look at something external to get some engineers in here to come up with those scopes of work to help identify how we move these projects forward, because we are on a clock to start ticking with that.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. So just to kind of give an overarching on where we are with the projects, some of those we've talked about quite at length here, but just to kind of bring you up to speed. So the first thing, for every single one of the projects that we're going to talk about, we are in need of scope of works to be created. We'd had a conversation with the county manager in the past, who basically felt like we had an engineering company that was already kind of doing work for the county that we could get on board. But for some reason, we have not moved forward with that at all. And that truly is the primary obstacle we're facing now for all of the projects that I'm going to be referencing from this point forward, is getting those scopes of work completed. So the next side of the hiccups or obstructions, so to speak, we need to reconcile for the Helene projects. What are we going to be asking for reimbursement? So Director Blanchard referenced a few moments ago, we had talked about the county fire department and that $10,000. Well, when we got the documentation from Cheryl, there's actually another $26,000 worth of receipts in there that don't belong, at least not entirely associated with the fire department. So that means there are other departments within the county that are submitting some documentation for reimbursement for claims. Additionally, there is some question on the overtime and straight time. The documentation that was provided by Cheryl basically demonstrates that we have more overtime that was assigned to Helene through some sort of job coding that they use, but it's more than the 9 employees that were associated with the fire department. So those moving forward for the Helene projects that Director Blanchard mentioned a moment ago, those are some obstacles that we have that we need to kind of work through and figure out how we want to move forward and what we want to seek reimbursement for before we can actually move those projects for Helene forward. With that being said, I'd like to start now with the project status. So for Hurricane Debbie, and you can follow along in that next sheet there. I'm assuming that you should have all of these documents that I'm referencing today, and they should be in the same order, so we won't have to flip back and forth like we did previously. So the DR 4806, that is Hurricane Debbie. And so if we take a look at the box culvert, Turner Cemetery Bridge, the box culvert on 23A, and I'll pause right there for a moment. So those are three of what we're calling the mitigation projects. All of those fall into what we call the small project application. And those projects, the box culvert is going to be close, but those projects have been submitted, and they are now before what's called the Consolidated Resource Center, which is FEMA. And there will begin a kind of a back and forth process offering mitigation and whether or not the items or the projects meet cost-benefit analysis equations and that kind of thing. So they have been submitted to FEMA and the CRC, and are basically, we are in the process of getting those projects moved forward.
Yes.
May I, Dennis, ask a question? All three of those are shown that you need scopes developed on them. How do we not, if we've submitted the projects for their review and approval, how do you not have scopes?
So this is a FEMA process, and so the way it works is you submit basically a plan. That's what I'm going to use a different word here just to make this clear. We submit a plan of here were our damages, and here is our plan to repair those damages, and incorporated in that plan was some mitigation. How do we make it more resilient? How do we prevent it from happening in the future? Or how do we make it stronger? So it may happen again, but the damages aren't as bad. That process, and through the CRC, we actually took one additional step when we brought in the engineer, Victor, who was before you guys a few months ago. We actually took that even to a higher level than is normally done, because we literally incorporated those into our engineering summary reports. Once that process is starting, we on the other side, on the county side, it is inspected. Remember, again, FEMA is a reimbursement program, so they're reimbursing you for monies you're spending. The expectation is the county is going to be moving forward with these projects, and so the scope of work we're talking about is literally coming up with the scope of work and getting quotes, bids, proposals.
Okay, so let me say it this way. The initial step that you've done that's submitted is the concepts. Now you're doing the scope of work to actually do the work.
I use plan, you use concept,
Thank you.
but you're smarter
Okay.
than I am. So, but that's the point, and the scope of work then becomes the true point at which we can start getting invoices. And if you recall, a few months ago, we talked about this process and getting it into the CRC. That the number one reason for us expediting and doing the things that we've done extra at the, with the help of the state and with the contractors we brought on board, is to begin that permitting process, because that truly is the point at which things slow down. That's the bottleneck in the entire process. So the earlier we can get the scopes of work done and we can get bids, we can then get that to the permitting agencies, Corps of Engineers, you name it, all the environmental stuff on that side. So again, the scope of work is the trigger point to actually begin putting together the project for construction. Does that help? Yep. All right. So again, for the rest of these Debbie, so we had County Road completed. We have submitted those. That is what Director Blanchard was referencing. We documented in-house. We documented that we had $350,000, give or take, dollars worth of damage to our roads, but we were only able to document at the FEMA level enough to be able to claim $71,000 worth of reimbursement. And that is also at the CRC. That doesn't require a lot of scope of work because it's submitted as something called completed work. So basically it's just a matter of them coming behind us and seeing how much farther down they whittle that $71,000 to what they actually agree, okay, you've got the necessary documentation and here's the reimbursement. The County Emergency Response and Preparedness, again, we call that a Cat B. That's also been submitted. The Cat B projects versus all these Cs, which is roads and bridges and culverts and those things, the Cat B projects are basically the stuff that we have to do just to get business going. So it's going out and doing cut and toss, it's debris removal from the law enforcement and the firefighter side. It's all that stuff that's typically wrapped up 3-4 days after the storm is over. And so those projects typically don't have a whole lot of legwork on the documentation side beyond the activity reports. And so those projects got submitted very quickly. That's why we're still yet submitting some of our projects, yet the Cat B stuff is already in the system. Those are also the most likely to get obligated first. So if I move down now to the projects that are pending, so those are all the projects that have been submitted to FEMA, and basically FEMA is working its process. These next two, Shoals Park and Boy Scout boat ramp, both of them have not been yet sent to that stage to the CRC at FEMA. They are still awaiting some documentation. One of those things that I will say that has been another obstacle is the Shoals Park is waiting on maintenance records. So that's anything that we have done in the past to demonstrate that we kept up the roads. We, may have graded roads, we may have cleaned up ditches if we've past experiences in Irma, if we move sand around. It's the documentation of those things that FEMA says, hey, you've obviously been upkeeping the property, but you have to submit that documentation. That's the only documentation that's holding that project up from being moved on to the CRC. And then the boat ramp.
Who needs to provide that, Sarah? Who's got that kind of documentation?
It would be split up, honestly, between our recreation department and public works, depending on the level of work
Do we
that was done.
daily logs of what's being done?
Public works department does, yes.
But you said this is recreation as well. How do we, I guess my question is, what do we do on a daily basis to keep up, to be able to have records and documentation of what is actually being done?
For just daily activity logs, the recreation department doesn't do that, but we can recreate that information with invoices and time cards and things like that. We've got emails that talks about that, maintenance requests and things like that. So as far as them writing it out every day, what they do, they don't do it to that level, but we can come up with that information in other ways.
Okay.
And again, like we went back to in the beginning, this is a learning process to show us we need to be doing those things. We were not for this storm, but that is something we will be doing in the future.
Well, I guess the reason I ask my questions, I think it's a little bit more than just a learning process. I think it's a process that we don't have in place that we need to start implementing.
Yes, sir.
Keeping a record of what employees are doing,
Yes,
to be
sir.
able to come back and do this at a later date. We don't have, I mean, if we, look, our guys are going out working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not questioning that. But they're going out doing work all day, grading the road, digging the ditches, cleaning, doing repairs.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not documenting anything. So all we got is a timesheet saying he worked this today.
Right.
We don't know if he was working trimming the bushes back, if he was fixing repairing a post or fence that went down, fixing the road. Something along the way. It should be daily. There should be some daily logs, daily records of something of what is being done, such that this can be retrieved at some point.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but
Yes.
so to me, it's more than just recreating. It's a process that we don't have in place now that we may want to think about doing as we learn what is needed for these kind of events.
Yes, sir. And we most certainly are doing that. Yes, sir.
And that education portion of it, and like you said, in the processes, we're learning now what we left on the table, and so that's truly, it's a process of making sure that we collect that. The other thing is, and I will say this, that they call me Mr. 214, which is the FEMA form for documenting exactly what it is that you're doing that's reimbursable. But the truth is, just like our contractors when they came in, we are able to piece some of that stuff together. Now, it's a very cumbersome, ugly process doing it that way, and I do think it behooves us for the future potential of storms to make sure that we have something that's not that cumbersome to come back and try to figure out, hey, because FEMA just wants to know, show us that you are upkeeping this park to start with, not that you're trying to get this entire park brought up to speed with our storm. That's essentially what the documentation's for. So both of those projects are the other one, and so I picked up with the Boy Scout camp. The Boy Scout camp is a little bit more complicated. That is hung up in almost a death spiral at a very high, I should say low FEMA level before it's gotten on there. And it's just basically a conversation I had this afternoon at 3:30 is one person at FEMA is not talking to the other person at FEMA. They hope to have that problem. It's the complication that you referenced, Commissioner. So, but anyway, we expect that both of those projects should be moving forward in the process fairly quickly as soon as we can get their maintenance records. I will also add, and we've got Miss Emily from the Riverkeeper here, along with some other folks. We started bringing in other folks. So if you remember when we first started talking about these projects, the cost benefit analysis, that 15%, if you benefiting, if the project mitigation, making it more resilient is less than 15% of the total cost, FEMA kind of takes that as almost like a rubber stamp. As soon as it gets beyond that, then there's intangible things then become a factor in whether or not FEMA says, hey, it's not really cost effective just with the looking at the project itself, cost beneficial, but when you consider the benefits to the county, to the economic development, there are other intangible things that come into play, and we brought the Riverkeeper on board, who's absolutely in support of these projects, as we've kind of drawn them out to lessen what our losses are in the future, and also to maximize the benefit to our community. So I do want to thank Ms. Emily and her group for being a part of that.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
real quick? Here on the boat ramp, I know we completed mid-July, and the storm was early August. So I'm not sure there would be much maintenance records or anything in regards to keeping it up, or is that one just kind of the one on?
We got lucky on that, to be honest with you, because that's not maintenance records that's holding that one up. That's in that weird FEMA not talking to itself thing.
Okay.
What we were able to do was we got pictures literally that were in the
Hundreds
press
of pictures.
of right after the boat ramp was finished, and then what it looked like for Debbie, and FEMA's like, good enough for us. So the
Gotcha.
maintenance records, this storm did not come, but should we have another storm, then those maintenance records would become. But on that particular project, maintenance records are not the holdup for that particular project.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question?
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit on this one, because there was some concern about could we do just some temporary work, just a little bit of dirt and backfill to maybe get this
Scope of work.
reopened? Yeah.
Scope of work. So here's, and it's a complicated set of FEMA rules that you have to operate in, but it's the rules. FEMA may allow, so the scope of work, the thing that we're waiting on for all of these projects, if that scope of work is done, there may be things in that scope of work that can be done in increments as long as they are in furtherance of the scope of work and not separately repairing and putting it back together. FEMA looks at it this way: if you put it back together, what do you need us for?
That's
It's fixed,
exactly right.
done. We're on to the next. We're fighting that issue with Steel Bridge Road right now, because they thought we fixed it when we went through. They didn't recognize we made it just safe for emergency vehicles, law enforcement, and school buses. So as far as that goes, once we get the scope of work, there may very well be some things we can do in an interim period as part of a larger phased project where we may very well be able to get some access to that boat. Now, I don't want to speak, I'm not an engineer, and I don't want to speak without seeing a scope of work and having conversation with FEMA saying, hey, can we do this? But it's absolutely in the realm of possibility, as opposed to going in and making repairs that FEMA's very clearly, and the state has very clearly told us, as well as our contractors, told us very clearly, we don't recommend you do that.
Yep.
But if we can get the scope of work and we can get that project designed, and we say the first step is to go in and pull that out and put some dirt in, well, if that dirt becomes your new boat ramp, so be it.
Well,
Does that make sense as far as
That's a
answering?
follow-up question, I guess, then. So our intentions were to relocate it. So the scope of work would not address the existing boat ramp at all, if that were the case.
So removal of that boat ramp is part of that scope of work.
You can't make any improvements without the scope of work, period. So it don't matter if you do anything to that boat ramp or not. Even if we're gonna move that boat ramp, you cannot touch it.
Oh, no, sir, I understand that, but I'm
Until-
just saying if there's temporary work to the current boat ramp, but we're moving it, I get what you're saying, that the removal of that boat ramp may begin, but is it usable if you take up the concrete? I don't know. That's just a question that,
I want to be very careful that I
Yeah.
don't speak out of turn when I say there may be things when the scope of work comes in. If during the deconstruction process, right, there comes a point where that's an accessible facility, that's a different thing than going in and fixing that and making it an accessible facility.
Right.
And the destruction of the original boat ramp is absolutely included in our engineering reports, and it will
Right.
be part of the scope of work because that FEMA's going to be paying for it.
right, I just want to make sure we clarify that the scope would not be to repair, since that's what we talked about, it would be to relocate, but there may be some overlapping that helps us
But
there.
in the scope of work, it can say
Yes, sir.
temporary repair to existing boat ramp while a new boat ramp is under construction. That can be in a line item in your scope of work.
Now, whether or
If
not.
FEMA permits it.
There we go, and so I want to be very careful, because without the scope of work and having something to show FEMA to say yes or no, can we or can't we? Now, these are also conversations we can have with that unified federal review, which I haven't gotten to yet, but we brought them on board just like we brought the Riverkeepers on board. There may be viable options, but it all starts with the scope of work.
And you may need to stabilize it such that it doesn't continue to slide in. And if you stabilize it, the results that you could possibly use it, but you stabilize
Right.
it. So you've got to
There's all
be,
kind of ways.
you got to think
Gotta
it
make sure you
through.
word it the right way.
In
So
the FEMA
but
world, we
point
call that
is
wordsmithing.
The challenge is making sure that it's consistent with the scope so that we don't put in jeopardy $900,000 worth of a new boat ramp. That's what's critical.
Right.
Even if you don't, temporary walls could possibly open it back up.
I don't think we can open it.
I want to be very careful to say that until I have a scope of work and put that in front of FEMA, even a rough estimate or an outline of a true scope of work, and then have those conversations, because I do think we would get support from the Riverkeepers and some of our extraneous partners who would say there's a great benefit. In fact, her group specifically said we missed that boat ramp, right? But I do think that there are some possibilities, but they all start with the scope of work. Until we get the scope of work and then have these conversations and let them know what the needs of the county are, then they can take a look and see what options are available.
I just wanted to add, I just wanted to appreciate the clarifications. We get a lot of requests from the public about that, and that's the reason why I ask those questions, is so that this is, for the public record, that we've discussed it and what that looks like, so that people can come back to a point in time and hear that answer if they need to.
And unfortunately, the FEMA system is foreign to most of our public.
Right.
And then also, if you just drive by there and look at it, you think, yeah, I could fix that with, what was it, $3,000 and some chicken wire, I think I read somewhere. But the truth of the matter is, for putting the county back in service for the boat ramp, this
Right.
process, and I agree with the commissioner there, that jeopardizing it for
Right.
short term is probably not a good long-range plan.
Right.
All right, so we are on to a point that we probably need to have some discussions at this point. I wanted to bring these two projects to your attention. The first one is Persimmon and Blackjack Road. You got that documentation, and I'm sure none of you brought it with you again today, but I forwarded these projects to you several weeks ago. And Blackjack and Persimmon, it was one of those where the cost-benefit analysis was way out of whack. And it's not a very expensive project. If you look on your documentation, there are $13,000, $14,000 plus or minus. What we were hoping, or what we anticipated, I'd be careful how I say this, we believed that there was a really good potential that two addresses on that intersection were part of a larger, frequent, and recurring loss due to flooding issue. And we were waiting until very recently, didn't have access to that information. That would have been one of those things that FEMA really looks forward to. So if you can stop these folks from filing National Flood Insurance Protection claims, then we're willing to put some extra money in your coffers to mitigate some of these problems. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And so that project is almost certainly not going to be able to move forward under the mitigation of FEMA process. Just as a county resident, $14,000 is not a lot of money, and so that may be something the county may want to decide to just do on their own. And the county road department was already kind of scheduled to do the majority of the work. In fact, I think most of the cost would just.
Yeah, we'll talk
purchasing.
about that at another
Yes, sir.
meeting, but I agree with you, but we need to talk about that some other time.
And what the question is,
Persimmon.
letting you guys know that it's probably not going to get approved to move to the next section.
We understand.
And then Steel Bridge Road is still problematic for us. So partly, or one of the reasons why we've also incorporated the Riverkeepers and the Corps of Engineers is to come in and take a look at the overarching projects. If you remember, the Steel Bridge Road was broken into basically 3 segments. Second culvert set, 5 culverts. There was going to be a fantastic box culvert, really high. But the first culvert set, there wasn't a lot of work done on it. And there wasn't a lot of mitigation done. And so we're working with our partners to try to determine whether or not, as it's written now, the engineering summary report that we have now is in the best interest of the county. So we're looking to bring in some of our partners and help us bring you good information to make good decisions on that project. So that one is probably going to be delayed for a little bit until we can get some more input from our partners. That being said, that brings you up to speed with where we are in our projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I want to come back to talk a little bit about scopes. have we requested one of our general engineering consultants to do work for us and they have not responded?
They have responded, they've just not been able to work it into their schedule yet. We're still waiting for them to produce it. They said it would be no issue to do it. We're just getting
No.
into an already booked schedule that they have. But yes, sir, we've actually talked about some other resources that we might have. But
Such
it is
as?
some other engineer reaching out to a different engineering firm to be able to do that. But they, like I said, they felt it was
Well, if you're going to
within
provide
their-
services over $35,000, you got to go out for selection. You can't just decide to reach out. So that's why I'm trying to understand, how do we get to a point to where we get the services? Because what I see is every one of these projects
Right.
have the single asterisk, which means I got to have scopes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
And
until
they-
we get scopes, everything is kind of held up. So
Yes,
the
sir.
question is, how do we move it forward? What is the plan to move it forward and get scopes done?
Yes, sir. So we could either utilize another firm that we have on contract, an engineering firm, or like I said, John and Dennis and I have tossed around. I don't know. Like I said, now that we've got a company on board, there may be some other alternatives that we're not thinking of. But our resources at hand are either using an existing contracted firm that we have, or putting this out specifically for a bid process just to get the scopes prepared. But again, the company that we selected, they did respond. They said that they were fully capable of being able to do that. It was through the holidays when we first talked about it. And so, like I said, I know it's on their schedule, and they understand that it's for FEMA reimbursement. But again, we've asked them to interject a pretty serious series of scopes to be prepared in what was already a pretty booked schedule.
So in a nutshell, what I'm hearing is our consultants are too busy to do what we need to right now and meet a timely thing. In a nutshell, we're saying that they're too busy, their response is they're too busy right now to do it and the time that we need it done. So that comes back to the question as to how do we get this done to get this thing moving forward. The current consultant that we just selected today, do they have the ability to be able to move forward and do it?
So with that, we've had some discussions with them. They can recommend some engineering to come in. I don't know how quick the timeline is because we've just started discussing that. But I believe we were going to move faster if we do that, if we use them as a resource.
Well, my question, so that comes back, the reason I ask is, under the current solicitation that was done and received and we just approved, was these services anticipated as part of that so that it was covered, so that it can be done under that same contract, not a separate contract?
Yes, sir.
And I think that's a fantastic point that Thomas Allen Ferguson brought up. They want to take a look first before giving too much suggestion. What exactly is the scope? Because under federal 200, there's going to be some requirements, and they're going to need to meet that. So if the current agreement that you have with the existing engineering companies, because you have more than one, if it doesn't meet that scope, then we may have to do that anyway. So I absolutely recommend that we lean on Thomas Allen Ferguson to help us navigate that decision to the quickest response we can.
My suggestion is to figure a way to move the thing forward if it can be done, and the company that we just brought on has the ability, and it's consistent with what was advertised and what the services they're providing, and that can be done. I'd suggest to continue taking that route and move that thing forward to keep this moving, because that is going to be reimbursed anyway. That's eligible reimbursement anyway, right?
Yes, sir.
So I would suggest moving that thing forward as quick as possible. And the one thing about having them do it is they're working directly with it, because that service would be provided as a sub to them.
I do not want to speak for Thomas, so I'm getting a yes and a
Well, if it's going to be directly to us, then we're hiring. That's why I'm trying to understand what's the options.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes.
My name's Steve Stevens. I'm a shareholder with Thomas Allen Ferguson. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with your team, and we certainly want to expedite the process. But I don't want to tell you we can do something that we can't. I'd like to look at it first. As Dennis mentioned, I want to make sure that we're compliant with 2 CFR 200, which is the uniform guidance, which is federal law over this, along with the public program policy guide from FEMA that we call the Papa G. But Commissioner Bennett, you're exactly right. If it is allowed under the contract, we can sub it out to an engineering firm, as long as that scope of work that we signed on to allows for it.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So that would be my suggestion.
Absolutely.
Go back and take a look at it to see if that's an option. Because what I don't want to happen is this get locked down and, or never moving forward because we can't get scopes.
Yes,
If
sir.
we can't get the work done. This is the kind of thing that we need to make decisions on and move on. So if that can be done, that's going to be my recommendation, to try to figure a way to move it forward. But if not, then we need to address what do we need to do to move it? So it's not just sitting idle.
Understood.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One last thing I know we keep talking about scope of work. We've revised that horse and killed it several times. The biggest thing we want to do with the scope of work is to, whoever is going to be working with us to get that scope of work, and we had the same thing when we had our damage assessments, is talking to them about what our wishes are for that plan to develop that scope of work. That's probably the biggest thing that is going to make a big difference for us. And then submitting it, looking at FEMA on what their requirements are. So it's not just a scope of work, but it's understanding and putting in what we want done and then coming up with that scope of work.
Okay, that is the scope for my vote. Okay.
One in the-
Okay, we're good.
I mean, did we do
Pre-scope
that?
meeting.
We
Okay.
developed the
What
concept.
did we do?
We developed the concept, right? It's there. Now
Right.
somebody's got to sit down and write a detailed scope that specifically says all the things they've got to do
Right.
to develop that concept. The concept originally was to raise or whatever, replace the bridge with a box culvert or whatever.
And
Now
that was the options that he gave us, yes.
Right,
there's more
now
than
it's to
one.
write the detailed scope,
Right.
develop
So you can put out a bid
very
for it.
specific ones for those services.
What about your pre-bid document?
Anything else?
Sure.
We need somebody to
So,
write
so
all those up for us.
leaving here today, what's our next steps?
Finding someone that we can beg and plead with to complete those scopes in a
So
very
our
quick
That's-
time.
No.
Our marching orders are
Don't
to
beg
get
and
with
plead.
the team here
Yeah.
and try and figure out if how we can get the scope of work done.
Right.
Whether
Okay.
they're able to sub it out, okay, or we have to reach to something else. So my plan is within 2 weeks to have great news on what our next move is.
That'd be
Hopefully
great.
it's to have somebody.
So
Sounds
next
good.
meeting, you're expecting to
Yes,
have,
sir.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're-
Just wanted to make
we're-
sure we knew we're leaving here today, we got a clear understanding of what we're doing.
Perfect.
We appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all being in that meeting video. I think y'all was video casting then. All right.
Separate.
All right, item number 9. Ms. Little's, is this award for a bid on the courthouse generator?
Yes, sir, it is.
I was wondering, I was gonna make sure.
At long last, we finally have a bid award to present to you all on this project. This is for the courthouse generator that we were so fortunate to receive a $250,000 state appropriation to purchase. This was the 4th iteration of the bid process that we went through, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And thankfully, we were able to get a good, responsive bid that met our requirements and that was not quite in budget, but within budget that we could pay for. We did see 2 responses to this bid process. They were reviewed by an expert, so to speak, because I am not an expert on how to install a generator and would it work and would it do what we need it to. So, of course, we did have someone review those, and they agreed that our low bid from a local business, I'd like to point out that we like to keep work in Baker County when we can. And so the low bid is with Quality Internet Services of Florida, also known as CTEL. I believe you're familiar with their services. So just to refresh everybody, we do have a $250,000 state appropriation. The low bid on this project came in at $278,862.20. So we have an overage of $28,868.20, which we would recommend be paid for from our ARPA facility improvements, which is exactly what that fund is set up to do. And with that, staff recommends award to Quality Internet Services in the amount of $278,868.20.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Well, we could use ARPA funds. Can we use courthouse facility funds?
Don't believe there's any money in there to do so. No, sir.
We can't, or there's no fund?
We don't have the funds.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's not a fund that has very much money in it at all. It doesn't accumulate very much.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move into item number 10. Information only. This is fiscal year 2022-23 AFR. Miss Sarah, you want to?
Well, this was at the request of the board to have this on the agenda for tonight. This is for our fiscal year 2022-2023 annual financial report. There is a letter accompanied to the agenda item request form from Clerk Harvey. But again, this was a request of the board, so I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. I know that the clerk is here to help walk us through this process as well. So really, I'll just open it for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, when we first got a notification on that Friday, I immediately sent a response back to Sarah saying, add this to the agenda. So it was already coming on the agenda, and I understand immediately I think you had jumped in with the same response, and I appreciate that. And I know by that afternoon there was some letters being sent. A letter went back to, there's several letters gone out. And as well as a letter went to the clerk. And there's been 2 responses back from the clerks. One, as I understand it, went back to the Joint Legislative Committee from the clerk, and one a response back to the chairman in response to the letters that have been sent and received. And what I would like to understand from the clerk is what is the plan right now to address the audit? And we're talking about the audit that was due for the 22-23 year, which goes through our date ended September 30th of 2023 is when it ended. The audits are due within 9 months, which would have put it due on June 30th of 2024. And we are in February of 2025, well beyond that particular date. So I'd like to understand what is the current plan to have the information submitted?
Currently, the audit is a accumulation of the whole county. As far as the clerk is concerned and as far as the county is concerned, we have submitted everything that we need to submit. Now, the other entities, I can't answer for them, I'm sorry.
Who's the other entities, by the way?
It's the sheriff's office. They're here to answer any questions you might have.
So understanding, when you say you only submit portions of it, you don't submit all of the audit information for the county?
I do the county portion and I do the clerk portion. The tax collector does their part. It comes from all county constitutional officers. They meet with everyone.
So who manages the oversight and management to make sure everything is getting submitted at the county?
That would be Cheryl.
Let me ask it differently. In Baker County, who is the entity, who is the responsible for making sure all the county's audits are done and submitted?
I'm assuming you want me to say me, so I handle the audit itself. I have more public communication with the auditors than anybody, but I'm not over the sheriff's office finances, so I can't do their portion, my portion, and the county portion. It's an accumulative audit of all county entities.
I guess, but again, I'm going to come back trying to understand. Somebody at the county is responsible for the oversight of the audit for the county. We don't have the commission and 5 different constitutional officers all individually responsible for portions. There's somebody that has oversight of the counties, that has oversight of coordinating the activities for the county. Now, unless I'm mistaken, you serve as the clerk of court, as the comptroller for the county. So am I correct in that it's your responsibility to manage and continue to make sure all the other offices put their information together and have actually the guidance and oversight to make sure that the audits are submitted in a timely on time, or coordinating that facility for the state on behalf of Baker County.
Correct, but we are fortunate enough to have an audit team that is in probably more contact with each individual entity. We know what's going on, but they don't answer to me. I can't sit and tell them what to do. That is their office.
Who hires the audit committee?
It's an accumulative of the county and the clerk. The county pays for the auditors. We do the process. We go out for bids.
When you say we, who goes out for bids?
The clerk of court's office and the county manager, and we have a committee that goes out for bids as far as the auditors are concerned.
When the auditor submits a bill for payment, who pays it? From whose
Board of
budget?
County Commissioners.
So the Board of County Commissioners hires the auditors.
Yeah, the contract is with us, yes, sir.
Okay. So the Board of County Commissioners hires the auditors that then are reviewing all the documentation that is submitted. Is the information all submitted to the state or to our auditors first?
Auditors.
So all the information must be submitted to the auditors. They go through, do all the efforts to make sure it's all combined or whatever, and then that information is submitted to the state?
Correct. Well, they usually will come to you and present it to you, but then once it's completed, they will go ahead and submit it to the state.
And so who has oversight of working with the auditing firm to make sure they're getting everything they need?
Every entity works with them directly. And I know you're wanting me to say me, but I'm just
No,
telling
I'm just
you,
wanting to know what the facts are. Who is responsible for doing it? Because clearly at this point, it has not been done, and I'm not trying to ask you. I'm asking who is responsible for doing it. That's all I'm trying to get to. If there's 3 constitutional offices, or several of the offices have, some hasn't, but clearly at this point, there's 2 that I'm understanding has not been done and submitted. One is the sheriff's office, and one is the county's, the clerk's offices has not.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to understand, somebody has to be in charge of that. And that's what I'm asking.
in charge of it then, if that's what you want to hear, because the thing
I'm
about
wanting
it
the facts.
is, it is my job. I am the comptroller of this county. I have come to you many times, and if you need me to tell you that it's not been turned in, it has not been turned in. There are many entities that have a part in this audit, not just myself.
That is true, but it is ultimately your responsibility to ensure that it gets done on time. So that's where I'm coming back to understanding who is responsible for doing it.
I'm responsible.
And so, and where we're at today is not only have we not made the 9-month timeline by which it's supposed to be submitted, we are now 7.5 months beyond that 9-month timeline, and we still don't have that done. So I'm asking the question again, when will we have all the information done and submitted such that we, the Baker County, can have everything submitted to the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee?
We would have to speak to the auditors for that, because once we submit our stuff to them, we wait on them for feedback.
So we're just waiting on them right now?
On some of them, yes.
There was a list of information provided on February 8th that was outstanding. It says, I wanted to also send over an updated items list, open items list for the Baker Board of County Commissioners audit list. And there's a number of high priority and medium priority items that's been submitted. And it says, now that we have the 2024 court cost reported behind us, we wanted to reach out to you with a list of outstanding items for the clerk's audit. There's another list of high priority and medium priority. These are both for the commission and for your office. Are you telling me now that all of these priority lists, high and medium priority, have been submitted to the auditing firm?
They have been.
Okay. When were they submitted?
Well, you got to understand that list right there is a portion of the list that we've either gave feedback on, they've sent it back, they've pulled randoms. If we don't have enough randoms, we go back again, give them more information. It's not like that is the only thing that has just been outstanding. That list has been out there. We have answered, gone back and forth, back and forth. It's not something that you just answer in 2 seconds and bam, they're happy with it. It's an accumulative of everything.
So since February 8th, this entire list of information they've asked for has been provided?
Yes.
And now are we still waiting on them to come back with more inquiries?
we're at their mercy at this point. If they don't like what we sent, they will ask for follow-up. That's what we do.
Okay. So let me ask, are the outstanding items, are you aware, are they still outstanding items for the sheriff's office?
The auditor's office told me there were, yes.
When did they advise of that?
We had been in contact with the auditors, well, we stay in contact with the auditors, but I don't think we became aware that the sheriff was behind until probably a couple weeks ago.
So we are well beyond the deadline. We are 6 months plus behind it, and we're just now finding out that items have not been submitted?
Yes, sir.
Here's what it sounds to me like. We have absolutely no clue as to what's being done with audits or anything in the county. That's what it comes across to me when we are in the neighborhood now of 15, 21 plus months behind schedule. After the end of the fiscal year, 9 plus 6, 15 months, we don't even know if it's done. I'm extremely concerned. So I'm going to ask again. My primary focus at the moment is what is going to be done, what has been done or will be done to get the audit information submitted on time such that the auditors can finish this audit and have it submitted by March 31st.
Like I told you, I cannot speak for the auditing firm. I've been in contact with the auditing firm. They're going to try everything they can do to get us finished by March the 31st. I can tell you what I am told.
And so help me understand why are we, the county, well, I'll talk to the sheriff's office separate in a second, right? But from the county standpoint, from the clerk and the Board of County Commissioners' finances, why are we so far behind on our audits for 22-23 year?
Well, considering that I'm on my third clerk finance person, I have one finance person to help me at this point, which is Cheryl. I've hired someone, but that takes training. That takes more time out of her day to train than it does to somewhat do it herself. So getting a finance person isn't easy in a county like this. We don't pay. People with a degree, you can't hardly find somebody that'll come in and do this type of work for nothing.
Madam Clerk, you found a way to find funds to hire an IT person.
I sure did.
And buy
you know
servers,
what?
but I ask a
No, sir,
question.
you listen
If
to
you
me.
indicated that you don't have the resources to buy it, you find in resources in other areas to hire people. So I need to understand, what are we doing to bring this county back into compliance with state audit requirements?
We will be in compliance with state audit. The reason that I have the funds to hire a IT person is because I have a fund for that. That's all I can spend money out of it is for IT services. It's not for an audit. It's not for a salary. It has to be for a contracted position.
Can you not contract some of the services out?
And I have. But we were not allowed to let the contracted person have access to some of the data that needed to be done because it was a breach for the IT department. So whenever she works, I contract with her. She has to come into my office. She has other clients. You don't understand. There's a lot more that goes on here than what you're wanting to know.
No, there's not a whole lot going on.
Yes,
I see a little
there
bit of
is.
a power struggle, and there's an issue here between IT wanting and your office wanting to have full control or no control. So I'm finding that there's a lot of reasons why nothing's getting done. And what I'm trying to understand is, what steps are you taking to get this county back into compliance? We can make all kind of excuses, but the reality is this. This county is in jeopardy of losing state funds because this county has not performed. It has not done the audits. Simple as that. Not only we've got 3 different constitutional officers apparently have submitted their information. However, but on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, as well as your office, have not submitted all the information that's necessary because the February 8th letter said there's still additional information is needed. I will come back to the sheriff's office. But I'm asking again, as the comptroller, what is being done now to ensure that the information is submitted such that we can get back into compliance, because we are not in compliance now. The Joint Legislative Audit Committee met to issue sanctions to Baker County, and they give us a 30-day extension to make it to March 31st, or else there will be sanctions against this county, which means we will start losing our state funding and not getting paid for it. So I'm asking once again, please advise of what your steps are to get this information submitted.
We have reached out to our auditors and we've reached out to the sheriff about the audit. That's all I can do. I am not over the sheriff's office. They have to get their stuff turned into the auditors. So I've done all I can do as the comptroller. I had contacted the sheriff. He is aware, and they're here today to answer questions for you.
So from your side right now, not counting the sheriff's office, you're saying everything is done on your side to have everything ready, so now we're just going to wait. All we have to do is let the auditors get their work done and to make it submitted by the 31st.
Yes.
So there's nothing outstanding on your side. All right, so that's the first item. So Jeff, I'll come back and talk to the sheriff's office, Randy, whoever's going to talk in the sheriff's office in a minute, all right? Because I want to understand where the sheriff's office is at this as well, because whenever we get letters that let us know that we're about to have our state funds withheld, it is a problem for this county. And it is not something that's going to be taken lightly at all. And I'm really concerned with it. But that's number one, is what are we doing to get back on track? Number two, there was emails and things sent that advised that these things were behind, and it happened well before the date that we got a Friday date of knowing that the Joint Legislative Advisory Auditing Committee was meeting to introduce sanctions. And I'm very much concerned that the appropriate level of communication is not taking place with everybody to make this board fully aware that we are in jeopardy of losing funding because the appropriate actions aren't being done and completed on time, and this board is in jeopardy of losing funds because I clearly was not aware that we are in such jeopardy. So I ask a question. Have we had issues before with getting audits done on time?
Last year we did, yes.
What happened last year?
We went through a computer conversion and lost our data.
Okay. And so what happened last year with the audit getting done?
We got it done.
Okay.
But it was late because of the conversion we went through with ADG. The same system that I am trying to get where I can have on my server so I can do my job.
Let me ask again. I'm asking my question again. Because the audit was late, was there any implications to that?
Implications to the county? No, sir.
Oh, really? Not a tune of $66,000 lost to the county last year?
Don't know anything about that.
I would suggest you go back and learn that one and find it out. Because there were sanctions against this county and we lost $66,000 because of the failure to submit the audits on time. So this is not the first year that we've had sanctions potentially coming against this county. It has happened. It happened last year because the audit was not done on time. And so now we're facing the same situation again this year. And we talked about software that was implemented. We purchased software September of 21. It is 3.5 years now with software. That, unless I'm mistaken, it was the recommendation of the clerk's office to purchase that software. So we purchased the software that was recommended by the clerk's office, and it's taken us 3.5 years to try to get the system up and operational.
It's taken a long time because we didn't have access to the old information in the old system.
And so now we're super late on the 22-23, excuse me, the 22-23. The 23-24 audit is actually due in what, 3.5 months?
Yes.
And I would think that we haven't even started talking about it, have we?
We have started talking about it, yes, we have.
And where do you think, certainly is it going to be done in 3.5 months?
I can tell you that we will do our best to get it done, but we have had issues, computer issues, serious computer issues. We have some serious power struggle issues. And like I said, I have a job to do, but I have to ask permission to use my own system. I have to ask permission when I can use my system. That just is not acceptable either. You want to talk about not being acceptable, there's a lot of things that goes on here that's not acceptable. So.
Well, what I'm hearing right now is you don't have staff, you can't do it, you have one person to do it, but so far, and you don't have budget, but so far what has not happened is you've never come to this board and asked for a revised budget to get the staff necessary to be able to do it. So what I'm hearing now is a lot of reasons why it can't get done, and it's all coming down to only one person in this entire county being able to do this. I'm having a real issue with the way it's being managed, especially when it starts having implications to the entire county where we do not have state funding coming in because we're failing to do our basic core responsibility at a county level. And it's been made very clear that you run the finances, you are the comptroller. For many years, we had somebody sitting in this office that managed the day-to-day, but a couple years ago, you made a decision to pull those positions and put them all in the courthouse directly with you. That is because you are the comptroller. That is your prerogative. But when I see that this county is starting to get sanctions because it's not the job that you're elected to do, it's not being done, and it starts losing revenue for this county, then I have a real issue with that. I find it to be an embarrassment for this county to have to send letters to the Joint Legislative Advisory Committee begging for additional time to simply do the basic responsibilities, and the only reason that we can really give is we're a small county, it's hard to get people to work. That's the only really reason that we have. We're a small county. But we have people. We have good qualified people that can work. And we can find people, but I think there's more to it than just finding people. If there's a budgetary issue that you need to address and staffing, it's never been brought to this board to say I have a real concern, I can't hire people. And now we're getting an issue where we have sanctions against this county. The finance system did a conversion in 2021. The reasons it's been insufficient budgets to support an experienced workforce. Staff is hard to recruit and train. The office is short-staffed, and you just have a lot of day-to-day duties. One of the duties is submitting the audits. And I'm having a hard time understanding why we can't get there. So I'm going to ask again, you have indicated that all of your information that was necessary to be submitted has been submitted, and there's nothing outstanding from the audit that you need to submit on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners or your office that's outstanding.
I have nothing outstanding.
Okay. I'd like to hear from the Sheriff's Office on where you're at with outstanding items.
I'm going to let Jeffrey do the big part, but I'm going to take a little bit different approach and basically say that I had conversations with Jeffrey. As most of you know, Jeffrey's not there anymore, but he is there part-time, and he's doing coming in after hours in the evenings and doing some of this stuff. But the probably about a month and a half ago, I questioned Jeffrey, asked him about the audit, where we're at. We had a conversation about it. I told him to make sure that he is communicating with the auditor, but simply put, from an administrative standpoint. And we've had this conversation with both Jeffrey and Brad, is that we've never been late before. This is the first year that we are trailing behind, and Jeffrey's got some info to add to that. But still, simply put, as an administrative person at the Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff, it's not acceptable to be late for no circumstances, no reason. So moving forward, we haven't had it in the past. You're not going to have it moving forward. So really, the only thing I can say about that is that we're going to be on top of that to make sure it doesn't happen again, and that's really the only way to deal with that moving forward. But I do know that from where we're at, that we're probably 2 weeks from being completely done, and that's conversations that we've had recently also with the auditor. So, but I'll let Jeffrey come in and give you some more direct information related to that. Simply put, from an administrative point, it's not acceptable either on our end. So just so you know that.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. This is the last place I wanted to be after I left the Sheriff's Office, so didn't plan on this happening. But Randy's Undersheriff's correct. I have been constantly communicating with our auditors during the whole process. This is the first time the Sheriff's Office has been in this situation since the whole time I've been there, which was 15 years. He mentioned that when he met with us a few weeks ago, I had just met with the auditors before that. I think on January the 30th was the last conversation I had with the auditors about our audit. And just to be frank with you, the first thing I did when I talked to them was I apologized to them that we're running so far behind. I told them the situation that we've got going on at the Sheriff's Office. I'm not there anymore, and I'm just trying my best to help train Brad on the position and try to help get this work completed. So we've been really doing that. He said, well, the first thing, don't worry about it because you're almost done. He said, we have like 10 items from you. And he said, I'll be honest with you, the county just started sending us information. That's what I was told by the auditors. That was his word straight out of his mouth. That was on January 30th. But then I want to roll back and just give you a little bit of history.
Excuse me. It was when? January what?
30th. Yeah. But I want to roll back and give you a little bit of history on why we're running behind. So the 21-22 audit, I think you brought that audit up, should have been completed in June of 23. It actually, if you go look at the audit report, it was not signed until June of 2024, is when that audit was signed. So that's 11 months past when it was supposed to be completed. For the 21-22 audit, we began sending the information to them in December of 2022. That's the way we normally do the way the sheriff's office works with the auditors. December, when we start sending them information, and we usually have everything to them within 3 or 4 months. We're usually completed with our part. And that's when that cycle began. But since the 21-22 audit carried on for so long, we did not receive what we call our request list or request item list until July of 2024. Now that whole period from December of 23 through July of 24, I begged the auditors. I had 3 or 4 different conversations with them to please send me my list because I knew where this was going. Working on the audit right during the middle of the budget season. And at the sheriff's office, manpower is a problem. I totally agree with Clerk Harvey on that. It's a problem in our county. It's hard to get good people, and it's hard to get people, to be honest with you. We can't afford a lot of people, to be frank with you. So I knew where that was going. Trying to work on the audit right in the middle of budget season as well was going to be extremely difficult. So I got my to-do list from the auditors in July of 24, and I sent them probably 50 to 55% of the items within that 2-month period, July and August. At the same time, we're working on budget and working on normal operating procedures at the sheriff's office. So we roll forward to, as you know, I'm not there anymore. I left in October, the very first week of October, I think was my last week there. And we have just steady trying to get it done, talking to the auditors continually, trying to work with Brad at night and on the weekends, just trying to get it knocked out. What I can promise you is what the undersheriff said. We will have it completed within a few weeks, probably a few days, to be honest with you. I'm going to do everything I got in me to try to get the sheriff's office part completely done. There may be questions that come back where they want us to clarify something or verify some numbers or something, but that's my goal. Within the next few days to have it, the sheriff's office piece of it totally completed and sent to them. So I'm open to any questions that you have.
Just for the record, and be very clear, since all this started, I have personally spoken to the auditors doing the work. I've also spoken to the sheriff earlier today as well in regards to whereas, and he provided the same commitment that this would be done, it would be addressed immediately. And I appreciate that commitment to get it done. I will tell you, having something this late is exceptionally concerning for me. Right? I understand that there are sometimes challenges and deadlines, but for this to go this long and this far before we're fully aware of the situation, and I'll address it internally at the county side as well, for this board not having full understanding. The emails that went to county managers as well as previous chairmen that, quite frankly, was advising of the serious nature of it, that, quite frankly, I never realized that we were in jeopardy of losing state funding because of not producing the audits on time. There's a timeline established for reasons, and quite frankly, the 22 was so far behind, 23 could never get started. So that now leads me to believe that because of that, I question whether or not the 24 is going to be in the same predicament. Are we going to be sitting here in another 6 months arguing about the 24 and why it's so far behind, because it's already well beyond a reasonable time frame to have it done? Just 2 weeks ago at the regional council, they had the auditors was presenting the filings and everything there, clean audit. is done, and it was for the 24. We're still talking about 23. Ain't even. So it's a long ways to go before we're going to have 24 done. Same auditing firm as well. So to me, I guess what I failed to understand is these are consistent year after year. It's not like there's new changes drastically from year to year on what is to be provided and what is to be submitted and how it's to be done. And that's where I have such a challenge, realizing that we are so far behind on it. So I appreciate the sheriff as well, his commitment to making sure it gets done. But the reality is I would appreciate everything being submitted by the 28th at the absolute latest of February, such that we give the auditors the month, because it's got to be submitted March 31st. And the auditors had advised, what they had told me, again, was that they knew the March-April period is a very, very busy time for governmental auditing. And that's why they were so concerned with trying to getting it done during this short period of time. All I can tell you is at this point, we're in a very difficult and bad position to be in because it hasn't been done yet. And so I appreciate the fact that your sheriff's going to get it done. We'll see where we stand on the 28th.
Yeah, it's in a bad cycle, and it's a cycle that's very difficult to break. There's no doubt about that. We are where we are primarily because of what happened 21-22. I mean, I can attest to that. If I was still at the sheriff's office full time, I wouldn't even be up here today. Everything would have been totally completed by now. That would not be an issue at all. But I can promise you to help break the cycle that you're in right now, the sheriff's office, we're going to do everything that we can to get it done. I mean, my goal is to have Brad, my replacement Brad, trained up on where he's doing nothing but the normal operating procedures at the sheriff's office for finance department. And my goal is to work on the audit, and that's all I'll be doing for the 24. That's my numbers anyway. That's my books there anyway. So my goal is to work on that, and that's all I'm going to be concentrating on as long as Brad is where he needs to be to handle the normal operating stuff at the sheriff's office, the normal day-to-day stuff. And I think he'll be there.
Well, my focus right now, I appreciate the 24, but my focus right now is get 23. Then we'll start dealing with 24, but the 23 has got to get done. There's no discussion further about it. 23 should be the highest priority that we have to try to get it done. We need to be off that list.
And we will
this county needs to be off of a list that is sanctioned come March 31st to have sanctions against this county. That's as much as I can say. We got to be off that list. And as soon as that's done, then let's move on to make sure this board's kept informed of what's happening and making sure the information is getting submitted on a timely manner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. We have I had asked for the auditing company to be here tonight, but they couldn't make it. They had other engagements. But I did ask him if he would attend on his phone. And I think that Ms. Sarah has him on the phone now.
I can get him. Yes, sir.
Let's
He's on
get him on the phone in case the commissioners.
Is that all the questions for me?
That's all I have right now. I haven't started yet.
Okay.
So I'm letting everybody else
All right.
know.
I'll be here.
Thank you.
I got to step to the board and keep going.
But I wanted the auditors to have a chance to speak also.
This is Ben speaking.
Hey, Ben, it's Sarah. I've got you on speakerphone with the Board of County Commissioners. I'm just going to try to put my phone up close to the microphone so they can hear you, okay?
Sure, I'm good.
Does anyone have anything for the auditor other than me?
Just an update, where everything's at.
Can we get an update?
Ben, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but they're asking if you could provide an update on where we are with the audit.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, we spoke to Sarah last week, and Cheryl and Stacy and Jeffrey with the Sheriff's Office. We kind of spoke with everybody, and I think Chairman Bennett as well, so we kind of informed them all of the same kind of places where we're at. We sent Sarah an open items list last week of where we were at with the audit, of what was outstanding for the clerk and the board side of it, as along with the Sheriff's Office, so they all have the kind of updated list. Now, I will tell you, since that was on Friday, I believe, and since Friday, I think more items were provided yesterday, last night, maybe even the day before that. So we'll have to kind of go through those items, and it takes us a little while to kind of schedule staff on it, put them back on, and then if there's any follow-up. So we got to go through a process on our side once we receive it as far as to get all that done. So we're going to work through it, and that's the promise that I made to Sarah and Chairman Bennett for me, is I said we'll get on it as fast as we can. We are in the middle of a pretty compressed season with the March 31st ACFR deadline for governmental clients. So we're going to work on it and get you guys kind of turned around as fast as we can, but I just can't make any promises on our end about like if there's any follow-ups needed or anything like that, because usually with some of the information there is some a lot of follow-ups with it that have to kind of come along and kind of work through all that. So it's tough to kind of put a pinpoint on it and say when will the last request come in, because it's it's a little bit of a moving target with some of the things that require additional follow-up. But we have received more items and we'll keep working through it as we always do. And we did also talk, I'll tell you, on Friday, I think, and with Chairman Bennett and with Sarah, we do have some ideas about some ways that we could kind of help you guys in the future, as far as some suggestions we have for ways to kind of get things back on time. So when the time is right, we'd love to kind of talk about some of our ideas with you and what we can do for that. But otherwise, that's kind of where we're at on our end. But I can answer additional questions if you have any, or anything like that.
I have a question for you, a couple questions. One question is, if we have everything to you, all your requests in by the February 28th, is there any way possible that we can meet a March deadline, March 31st, I think it is, deadline?
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I won't say it's like totally guaranteed. So the reason is because usually once we get requests, especially with the BOCC side of it, and the clerk as well, that usually requires us to kind of go through and make sure that the supporting schedules match some of the underlying numbers in the trial balance. So without getting too like accountant-y for you, it requires us to kind of go through and do a lot of adjustments to make the books correct. So that does sometimes require a lot of follow-up and a lot of things. It's not just as simple as, oh, you got me support and I'm ticking and tying it right to the books. It does require a lot of adjustments usually on our end, and we have to help with that. So that's kind of historically how it's always been, is we have to help them make a lot of those adjustments. So without knowing how in detail we're going to have to go and how significant some of them are, it's tough to say how quick we can turn around, because it does have to be correct. We do have to issue an opinion on it, and we can't just rush it out the door if it's not correct, because that would put us at jeopardy too. So we will work through it for sure as you get it to us. It's just tough to say, like, based on historical precedent, how fast we can turn around, just knowing how significant some of the assistance we have to provide is.
The problem is we're against a hard deadline, March 31st. With Tallahassee, and that's the reason I asked the question. We've been
totally understand.
I have been personally told if we didn't have our stuff in by March 31st, it would affect the funding of Baker County, and that bothers me. That bothers me pretty well. Not saying it's your fault.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to know if there's any way you could work with us to get that. I've been begging for the past 2 weeks on getting good at it.
I
begged last weekend to the state of Tallahassee that they wouldn't cut off our funding last week. So I begged enough that we got to March 31st. I don't know if I can beg past March 31st to get any other kind of extensions.
Mr. Chairman,
just so you guys are aware, with the revenue sharing, as far as how that works with the state, just so you're aware of the process. When a municipality or a county has their revenue sharing withheld, it is just, I'm not saying it's a good thing, hear me out, I'm not saying that, but I am saying the process is that it's withheld for usually temporary in nature. I can't guarantee that, but usually it's temporary in nature until you fulfill the item that they're requesting to be fulfilled. So as long as you don't go too long, it should be temporary, but I can't guarantee that. But I'm just telling you the historical precedent of what we've seen with other municipalities and counties that have gone through this.
Well, we lost money, I know, in 21 because of it.
That's not recoverable.
Right. It's not recoverable.
The half-cent sales tax.
It don't matter. It's money that we should have got that we didn't get because we didn't do our job
as a county. And the notes from the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee for Baker County, it has a whole list of things here, of actions and things and correspondence and comments that was provided back, but the staff's recommendation is to take action if delinquent final reports is not received by March 31st, 2025. And given the fact that we were delinquent last year and we're delinquent again, there's a high probability that we're going to get sanctioned if it's not done on time, and we will begin losing money again that will be non-recoverable.
Understood.
And I have talked to our Representative Brandon, and he said that I could share this information. He's pulled all the favors he can pull. He stuck his neck out as far as he can stick his neck out. It's sad that we had to go to that point, that a representative of this county's got to stick his neck out to save the county, or we would have lost it. Friday or Monday was the day that they was having the meeting. I got the message Friday. It was 2 weeks ago that we was going to lose our funding on Monday. That's how pitiful it is for this board to find out. And that way, and thanks to Mr. Chris Doolin contacting me to let me know that our name is on that list, that's how this board found out. And that's unacceptable. Plumb unacceptable. And I'm not going to try to lose my cool this time because I don't want to be irked by nobody. And I'm not mad. I'm just more discouraged, I would say, that this board, these commissioners didn't have any idea that we was fixing to be put on some type of a list by nobody, no staff. And the sad thing about it, I've been on this board for a long time. And last year, we got the same letter. And I never seen it, heard of it, or anything. And I'm a commissioner of Baker County. Somebody's dropping the ball. And I know every time I'm the chairman, and I heard the other chairman always ask if there any public official in this office that has anything to say to this board. And most of the time it's no. We don't have anything. This is important. We rely a lot on state funding. And this don't only affect just the funding of or sales tax money that we get. We're talking grants. We have, who wants to give us a grant when we can't even do an audit? I am surprised we got the grant we got last year.
State representatives getting appropriations.
And I don't like begging, but I did. And I would do it again for Baker County. But I shouldn't have to. And I'm going to beg again to the sheriff. I'm going to beg again to Madam Clerk. Get this stuff in. I got a note here that the clerk turned their stuff in last night. That's not going to give the auditors time to do this little stuff. And that comes from the auditor. I'm trying to be good and calm and cool and collected. We depend on these funds. Our citizens in Baker County depend on these funds. And I think it should be high priority to any constitutional officer in this county that our citizens don't lose any funding because of our lack of doing our job. And I'm talking about all constitutional officers, including myself as a commissioner. If I don't do my job, but I didn't even know about it. I find out from an email and a phone call from Mr. Chris Doolin. Hey, you know your name's on this list. Hey, you know you're fixing to lose your funding. So I asked Ms. Chris Doolin, I said, well, just do me some research. How many times have we been in this situation? And that's when I find out all the other information. It's a sad day for Baker County. It'll be a sadder day if we don't meet the March 31st deadline. Mr. Christie, you want to add to that? How desperate it is to the 31st deadline? You was meeting with them personally, one-on-one. So if you want to step up to the...
Do we still need Ben on the phone?
and as anybody needs any, I think I've said what I need to say.
My request to the auditors, and by the way, I appreciate him taking my calls as well. My ask, and I don't mind groveling a little bit here as well, is we'd ask you all to do whatever you can to assist us with this one around, and we'll do our best to make sure you're not put in the same position next year.
Did that, Ben?
I think I heard most of it, a little bit.
I'll call you.
I mean, it's hard to hear, but I think I got what you're saying, Chairman Bennett. I mean, I think on behalf of James Moore,
I'm not chairman.
like I kind of told you on the phone, we're going to work through it as fast as possible and get through it as fast as possible.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Bye.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Duke.
Get it done by March 31st. That's it. I'm sitting in my office 2 weeks ago, getting ready for the committee meetings last week, looking at the agenda for last week's committee meetings, and I notice on the agenda an item that says expected to take action regarding local government entities that have failed to file annual report. And I looked at it, and there was some rationale, and the deadline was February 28th. That's what, 2 weeks? No way. So I called and I said, first of all, we need to let Representative Brannon and Senator Bradley know, because they're not on this committee. And I don't want them finding out about it and asking questions. And I talked to the chairman, and he wrote a letter. And he asked for an extension. And they granted it. But it was made pretty clear. And we made some calls as well to the chair, other people on the committee. Good friends, former county commissioners chairing the committee. I don't have any problem this time, but I don't want to see it up here again, okay? Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I suspect you've made it pretty clear. But in the course of the conversation, I was informed, this isn't the first time. I said, oh, really? And there are penalties, and they were implemented in 21-22. I called back. Do you know about this? Nope, hadn't heard a word. Well, I can tell you that the correspondence is all very clear. Copies to people, copies to across the board. And so I began to think about, how can this get fixed? The alligator closest to the boat is getting that report in, okay? And there's two things. There's an annual financial report and there's your annual audit. There are two reports that have to be submitted. So that's the first action. To get it, you've asked for an action plan. I think it has to be an action plan with oversight above the folks that are engaged in it, so that somebody is measuring the delivery dates. And the second thing is, and I love this county, you know that. I love all my counties, but this one's close. There are communication deficiencies. No problem, no question about it. And they happen, they do happen. And the deficiencies are such that when someone's informed and they have to inform somebody else, people need to make sure that the right people are understanding and there's an appropriate exchange of information. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I don't want to cast a bunch of stones here. I think it's all pretty clear. So the second thing you guys need to look at is from a communication standpoint of who's communicating with who and on what substantive issues and what needs to get done, basically. That's a secondary issue, but it's right there with it. And the third thing are the reasons expressed by the clerk in the correspondence. I represent 40 small counties. We all have problems. But we all don't miss our audit timeframes. So I think it's important for the board, and you focused on this, Mr. Bennett, you need to have a discussion about the items that were identified as reasons for noncompliance. The financial system conversion, that's a 3-year-old issue. Everybody has trouble with technology. The insufficient budget to support experienced workforce. There may be things you need to do there. Contract and services, what, I don't know. But that was an issue that was used, and that needs to be explained, and that needs to be discussed and in the budget process remedied. Staff's hard to recruit, absolutely, and there's no doubt about that, but, explain that. Short staffs and difficulty with day-to-day, all those are very understandable, and I say that. They're understandable. But they shouldn't prevent the office from completing reports on time. Someone here's an accountant. You're an accountant, CPA? Who? Oh, yeah. Talk about a little oversight here, you know. Anyway, y'all are gonna work through this. It was $66,000, that was a surprise. There are other revenues, as the auditor explained, that are recoverable. Once the 1 month penalty occurred, there wasn't another month went by. I mean, you got it fixed. You may have been ready to do it. So I'm just here to try to facilitate and help. There are problems that are fixable. And I'd be glad to do anything I can to help you. But those 3 things, I think the board should codify in some fashion. I don't know if it's an actionable item, but you need to have an action plan submitted, and there needs to be some oversight, whether it's a Howell Ferguson firm or somebody else coming in and overseeing the whole darn thing and just saying, all right, where are we now? Now, everybody get it done. It may be some outside folks to come in and take a look at all the moving parts and say, okay, get it done. The communication, you may need to facilitate some conversations there. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it's pretty direct conversation can get things straightened out. They should be. And for somebody understanding March 31st, let's make sure they understand March 31st. And what I said to you, that request for 30 days was not. That request for 30 days was to give y'all the time to review the information that needs to be done well prior to March 31st. Because you need to review that. And I know that's a burden on whoever here and this, that, and the other, but this is your responsibility. So I do want to commend the chairman, because I asked him several times in several different calls. And Mr. Bennett, you called me at home and we talked, because you saw the letter that had been sent in and you were concerned about it and you wanted me, and I explained to you at the time. So I'm going to stop there. I mean, you guys have it. I've outlined my recommendations, and you need to work through that at the appropriate time frame. But the alligator closest to the boat, without exception, is if you need to allocate more resources to get whatever done, it's not going to cost you $66,000. I mean, you need to avoid that and get it straight. So I don't know. I'll be glad to consult later. I don't have the capacity in my firm to do any of that, but there are people around, and there you go. Okay? And it's happenstance that I'm sitting in my office at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon looking at the calendar for next week. Just saying. Okay?
We appreciate it, Chris, and I appreciate you helping me out and informing me where I should have been informed by other means.
One thing, there was no intention not to provide y'all information as we found more out about this. We needed to make sure that we were right and we were asking the right questions, and I think the correspondence you sent to the clerk was dead on. I mean, you asked the right questions,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you. And I made sure every time that I done something, or something was sent from Chris or anything, that I made every member of this board aware, because I didn't want y'all to be caught in the same situation that we was caught in from last year, not doing anything. So everybody, and even the clerk, I sent her the same correspondence, so everyone was made aware of what was going on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I appreciate the commitment. I've heard the sheriff that it's going to get done, but what I have not clearly heard from the clerk is what is going to be done to get this in. The answer we got was, well, we submitted everything last night, and we'll just wait and see what the auditors do, if they have more questions. I'm not sure that we have actually a game plan right now of how to make sure everything is done and kept up. We have one more meeting. We have a meeting in March. First meeting, we got 2 meetings in March. By the second meeting, I'm not sure if it's not done, then what's our reaction? Because I'm not sure what is being done, anything different than what we're currently doing. And what I hear is we're not doing anything different than what we've been doing. We're going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing in hopes of getting it done by March 31st. I remain very uncomfortable with where we're at, because I haven't heard any plan. There's not a plan to bring anybody else in to help address it. There's not a plan to bring a consultant in. There's what I just heard is we've submitted everything, and we'll see if they have more questions, and we'll try to respond when we have time, but we're short-staffed. That's the only plan I've heard, and that's where I'm very much concerned with us meeting this, and it has implications to this county, significant impacts. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I certainly don't have a warm, fuzzy feeling when we leave here today that it's going to be done.
Well, my plan of action, and I got a man I'm going to volunteer for this. He climb under the thing or over it, whatever he wants to, but I know he's a CPA.
Well, let's clarify. I never actually took the test. So I studied for it. Never actually took the test.
You're a lot further along with it than I am. I've run a business for 40 years, but I'm still not a CPA, or
Sure.
close to being a CPA. But I am going to appoint you to stay on top of this.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to be there with you. But I have to leave the country, and I can't be where I need to be doing everything I need to do. But I'm going to appoint you as a liaison for this board to stay on this.
Yes,
and
sir.
ride them hard.
Mr. Chairman,
If
are
you-
you going to set timeframes for them to follow, so you'll put all that together?
Yep. I'll have him work with Sarah, and then they gonna get us a schedule and have it out to the board before the end of the week. And then I'm gonna have y'all talk with the sheriff and with the clerk's office and get a hard commitment on a timeline, and not just we feel like.
Sure.
We need times, and I need dates, and I need action. And I don't want to see any date come in after February 28th on anything. If it comes in after February 28th, it is not going to be good. You think I was irked with the chief, the assistant chief, and I wasn't irked with him. I was just aggravated because he says I don't care about people. The reason I'm up here today irked is because I care about people. I care about Baker County, and I don't want to lose any money, and I don't think anybody in this room does. And there's a way to solve that. Just get this thing done. Yes, Sheriff, I see you.
I'm gonna say real quick, I apologize for being outside some other event, but this is unacceptable to me, and I just want you to know, as this board, you'll be hearing from me. You don't have to reach out to me. I'll be coming to you. We'll make sure this is right. This will be done by next week. I'll be getting with Jeffrey as soon as this is over. All of our time is going to be fixing this problem, and this problem won't happen again. I can assure you, I can assure the people of Baker County, I'll be on top of this. This is what I'm here for. I'm like you. I'm not here to hurt Baker County in any way, and this is embarrassing to me, and I will address it, and I will take care of it. I can assure this board, and I can assure the people of Baker County. And you'll be here for me. You don't have to reach out to me.
Thank you.
I'd like to know the date of any submittals after
Anything.
today.
Oh, I mean, any action, we want to know, this board needs to know any action.
I would suggest you document all the steps that you're taking, including this discussion tonight and all the commitments that are being made. Because on May 31st, somebody or a group is going to be standing before JLAC telling them exactly what you've done. Hopefully, you've complied.
Yeah.
If by some stretch of the imagination, people don't understand what they're supposed to do by May 31st, at least you will have
March 31st.
March
Sir?
31st.
March 31st. You said May
Sorry.
31st. March 31st for clarity.
You got it. Just.
I think I've made myself and the board's made themselves clear what we expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this definitely a bad look, considering we're trying to get grants and everything, and trying to get help, from the state. And if we can't provide this documentation, it doesn't look good whenever they're trying to give us money and we can't show them what we did with the money. So we'll definitely work hard to make sure everything's tidied up.
So by Friday, can we have in writing, Mr. Sheriff? Madam Clerk, in writing Friday, can we have a plan, an action plan?
Mine is turned in, mine is turned over to the auditors. Everything they've asked, the trial balance, everything. I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay.
So, it's on them.
I want that in writing, please, by Friday.
I don't know what you want.
I want what you just told me, that you have turned everything in to the auditors
For the clerk and the county.
for the clerk and the county as of whatever day, what was yesterday? 2/17. At whatever time you turned it in, I want to know, if I got to go stand in front of the people in Tallahassee, I want to have a timeline on everything that we have done to try to meet. If we don't meet it, I want to be able to stand in front of them and say, this is why. We tried, we done this, we done that, we tried. I don't want to go up there and say, well, we're a small county and we can't do it. We've done it for 20-something. I've been here, how long have I been here, Mark? A long time. And we've done it every year, except for the past 2. So tell me, what's the difference? And we went out and spent all this money on a financial system that was supposed to be the best in the world. It doesn't make good common sense. So whatever we need to do as a board to help y'all do y'all's job, we need to know. Because I don't want to be here next year doing this same thing. I will not be here next year doing the same thing.
I will not be in this position.
I will not be in this situation either.
You can hear that, I'll write it, whatever you're gonna say, I'll write it, but the sheriff's office will not be in this position again, I can assure you of that.
Thank you,
I will assure you and the county that, I promise you, that will happen.
Well, I hope so, Sheriff. And I take you for your word, because you never told me anything that wasn't true. But I am disappointed that you can't get a straight answer out of the clerk's office. And me and you are good friends, and always will be.
I don't know what more of a straight answer you want. It will be done. Next year's audit will be done. That's my word.
When?
On time.
On time. 3 months.
Get it done.
Sounds good to me. Any other discussion on this item? Mr. Chris, I know you got a long drive. I got a sheriff right there. He's a good friend of mine. But we appreciate you coming over from Tallahassee. I appreciate you informing me and helping me through the process. Because I believe without a shadow of a doubt, if you hadn't have told me, we'd been in a pickle, a fix, whatever you want to call it. Baker County would call it a pickle. But thank the Lord that people still listens and listens to people that beg, because I'm a beggar. And I don't want to be begging March 31st. Okay. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is prior business report. Miss Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just let me get to my page here. All right, starting at the top of our list, the COA bus wash. So we did successfully receive our CO on this project. However, we do still have some difficulties. Excuse me, y'all got me so cold I can't hardly talk in here tonight. Difficulties with the property in itself. The closeout documents for the bus wash, as in regarding to the CO, has been submitted to DOT for the grant reimbursement process, so they are aware. However, we have a water flow issue on the property. Thankfully, Commissioner Mobley is an expert. As long as a CPA, he is also an expert underground utilities man.
Well, what do you think a CPA is?
He is a jack of all trades around here. So we actually had a site visit with the contractors, Commissioner Mobley, myself, and the city of McClenny last week to look at it. We believe we've traced the problem back to the backflow preventer. So there's a water flow problem that's really, we've got an issue with the toilets backing up occasionally upon heavy rain at the transportation center. And then the bus wash is not pumping as much water per minute that it should to really function appropriately. It functioned and passed inspection, obviously, to get the CO, but until we get this resolved, we've advised them not to use it because we don't want to damage any equipment for lack of adequate water flow. And then the new building is also it's received a CO. There's no issues there other than the toilets you have to flush them twice to go down. So we know we've got a water flow issue on the entire property. So we did have, there was an oil water separator that we think might have been causing some of the problems on the toilets backing up in the transportation center. So that was pumped out last week also. We're hoping that that'll help that situation. And again, Commissioner Mobley has secured us a company to come out and look at that backflow preventer, and I'll let you jump in there.
Just to add to that, we did meet out there. There's one way in with the water. It's not a loop system yet. I think that was supposed to have been done, but the funding wasn't there many years ago to make it a loop system. So right now, all the water is coming through a 4-inch backflow. I've got a company that's coming out. She just emailed me a little while ago. She's getting it on schedule now, and so they're going to take it apart and try to. It's a 13-year-old backflow that's, if I had to guess, probably never been serviced. So they're going through and they're going to take it apart and make sure it's serviced correctly. And if it is corroded beyond repairs, they're just going to recommend getting a new one. But before we bit the bullet and got a new one, just go ahead and get them out here, get it serviced, pay the little fee, and see what we can do. So that's where we're at on it, to provide water to the buildings.
Is there a process or a timeline of having a loop system out there? Do you know?
Me, myself?
For a city. I thought looking at Sarah through you.
No, sir, it actually wouldn't be through the city. It would be through the project, and it's yes, it's through the COA property loop system.
Correct. Coming off of Willis.
Until we looked at those utility plans with the city and Commissioner Mobley last week, I don't know that any of us current people were aware that that was supposed to have been done. And like Commissioner Mobley stated, I can only guess that there just wasn't money to do that when the transportation center was originally built. But it looks as though that was part of the plan that just was not
The reason
completed.
I'm asking the question is we're fixing to put a sewer, or not a sewer, but an outflow pipe
Yes,
going
sir.
down the side of that property.
Yes, sir.
And I was thinking that we didn't want to double the work. If we got I don't know if you could put James or he would know more about this. If you could put the same pipe in that same overflow, because it ain't sewer, it's just water coming out of the pond. Could you add a pipe in there?
No, this would all be.
It has to be individual. Okay.
Yeah, there's requirements to separate water and sewer, water services,
Correct.
potable water and sewer, and 10-foot separation
Yeah.
and maximum. But a stormwater pipe, it's not a problem there, but you don't want it right on the storm pipe either. You want-
I'm dealing with the same issue on the project I'm doing right now. It's got to be at least 6 foot away from each other to run it in there. So unless you do other means, but 6 foot is common.
All right, sounds good.
So we're like I said, this is obviously one. It really has no. The cause was not because we built the bus wash, right? So I don't want to say that this is new infrastructure that's put in that's not functioning. The new infrastructure is functioning the way that it should be. Unfortunately, old infrastructure is not pumping as much water as it should. So it's just getting that up to par and making sure that we've got adequate water flow. So again, we'll follow up with that one hopefully at our next commission meeting. Maybe we'll have a quote for repair or a quote for replacement or something before you guys, if that schedule will allow it to do so. Moving on down the list.
Question, do we have any idea what a replacement might be? What kind of dollar cost we're talking about?
I was supposed to price that today and just got carried away. But
are we talking a couple $1,000s or 10,000? What?
I would venture to say less than 10.
Okay. Well, at the end of the day, it's got to be done. Am I correct?
Right.
Then
It's got to be repaired or replaced, yes, sir.
My suggestion is when you get their information back, it's got to be done. You know, if you know what the cost is, if you know there's going to be a reasonable cost, I would suggest that we move forward with repair, replacement, get it done, get the project moved. Don't wait on another board commission meeting for another 2 weeks or so. We got a facility there that the public can't use. And so my recommendation is take appropriate action. If we need to ratify it back at the next commission meeting, we'll do so.
Then your purview anyway.
It is, yes, sir. If it's less than $10,000,
less than $10,000, you can handle it anyway, and
yes, sir.
Through the commissioner, we give him the purview to move forward with it. If it needs to be done, let's do it.
Sure, and then that's why we're taking the
What y'all
preventative.
think? I agree.
And but instead of just doing it right off the get-go, let's make sure.
But we get into it and then we don't put it back together.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If it's, if you
bad,
get it
replace
apart
it.
and it needs to be replaced, replace it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But not wait on another commission meeting to get a decision. Figure out what needs to be done, let's move.
We'll roll with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mobley,
Appreciate
for
you
that.
going out there, Mr. Mobby. Miss Sarah had that call me and said, I said, I think Mr. Mobby would do better on the building. I got it, but the underground stuff, I leave that to the CPAs.
I learned a lot about sewer systems. I did not plan for that day. But I got a really good
I learned one
education.
thing about them a long time ago. I don't want no part of it.
Yes, I was well educated. Well, I like that. I like to be able to see what's going on for myself too.
All right,
But-
let's move on.
All right, moving on down. St. Mary's Cove boat ramp again. We've talked about that at length, right? I don't know that we have anything more to talk about that tonight.
No.
The Council on Aging Senior Life Enrichment Center, again, the CO has been received. We actually had a walkthrough yesterday afternoon to develop a punch list for the contractor to finish up. There's a couple of outstanding items, some touch-up paint that needs to be done. There's a question about the finish on the flooring looks a little foggy is what I'm being told, and so we're getting with the manufacturer to see if that's the way it's supposed to look or if there's
It's not going to be a sheen.
something going on with that. Yeah, so,
This flooring that they installed is not going to be a...
right.
And they're probably looking for a gloss. It's not going to have that.
And I haven't seen it myself
It's
on
got
that
a
one.
sheen
but-
on it.
Yes,
and-
sir.
Usually you'll see that in the non-skid, non-slip surfaces.
Kind of a cloudiness almost. Yeah. So that they are reaching
I've
out to
seen
the
it, but I thought they
manufacturers.
still had to dust it and all, because
Yeah.
I seen it earlier.
Yeah.
But I think they're not going to see exactly what they're, it's
Looking
going
for.
to, not going to have a sheen.
Yes, sir. And if we've got to get the manufacturer out to maybe offer some
Yeah.
explanation, we can do that as well. And then there was a fan on the refrigerator freezer combo that was not working properly, so they're making sure that's getting taken care of. And then there was a pipe that was the drainage pipe for the steamer that was not adequately insulated. It was really close to a sink. So if you were there washing dishes and you accidentally bumped up against it, it needed to be insulated.
Yeah.
So I mean, minor things
Right.
that are being taken care of. But we are working through that. Again, that was just yesterday afternoon that we had that.
Have we set up, trying to find a time to do a grand opening on that?
No, sir. I did talk to a couple of the COA board members today, and they really want to make sure this stuff is taken care of before they set a date.
Well, the thing is, we need to look at a date prior to this, just for the simple fact, we got to try to get Brandon out there, Mr. Branding and
Yes, sir.
Bradley there.
Yes,
and
sir.
trying to get them both there together, and we're fixing to go into
Session.
session.
Yes,
It's
sir.
going to be impossible to get them there.
Yes, sir.
So we might want to look at that.
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead and not wait till we finish, but get a schedule, and then if
Yes,
we're
sir.
not finished, have it anyway.
Yes, sir.
Because we need to get them there.
Yes, sir. Let's see, moving on down the list, on the NAB Sports Complex, just want to make sure you guys see that the opening day has been scheduled for March 29th. They are going to have that ceremony that morning. I think it's at 9 a.m. I can verify that, but I believe it's always at 9. Just to have a grand opening, so to speak, of that park, and then the opening day for the
What day
Little
was
League
it?
season.
I'm sorry.
March 29th. It's there on your pending business report, too,
Yeah, I
just
see
to
it.
make sure.
I won't be here.
Let's see. Next item, courthouse generator appropriation. Thankfully, that bid was awarded tonight, so we can update that one at your next meeting and get a start date from the contractor as well on that one. And the Sanderson Center, we heard from Mr. Moore tonight as well. It's been difficult trying to find a engineer or an architect that specializes in what we're asking for. And then again, of course, the well was approved for replacement again tonight. So we'll move forward with that project. So unless there's any further items, that is the pending business report.
Anything for Sarah on that? I'll move to the next item, expense report over $5,000. Any questions for Sarah? We'll move to the American Rescue Plan. Sarah, is there any updates?
No, sir, there's not, but there will be after we make the update for the overage for the generator project, which will be
Yeah.
on your next agenda.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Sarah?
No, sir, I do not.
County Attorney?
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Commissioners? I'll start from this end this time, Mr. Mobley.
We're starting out here this time. I do have one thing. Commissioner Mann and I have taken the place of former Commissioner Croft and former Commissioner Roden on the New River Solid Waste Association Board. And we had our meeting last week, and we were awarded a plaque right here that shows we are 76% on our recycling rate. And that recycling rate is based off of the DEP reported recycled material versus how many tons is disposed of annually. Out of the 3 counties, they said this is the first one that they had receiving. And so congratulations on Baker County for recycling and getting this award. It meant a lot to them. It means a lot to us. I mean, it means we're doing good for the environment and everything. So we received this award, but I wanted to present it tonight. Not sure, I mean, y'all want to hang
Yeah,
that up
definitely.
somewhere?
We definitely
There
can.
we go. But that was part of my deal. Other than that, I think that's everything I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mobley. Commissioner Bennett?
Yeah, 2 things. Midpoint Development. There was another, I guess, open public hearing with the city of McClenny. I guess it was last Tuesday. And again, they just received more comments, more input. No decisions have been made. And so the developer now be having close dialogue with the city individual commissioners to get a feel as to whether or not they think the city is going to continue to have an appetite to work with them to provide the water sewer or not. And so the ball is really in the hands of the city commission right now for them to decide, do they want to provide those services and then exit that 2,200 acres into the city and manage the overall project, or if not, then the developer has the option to provide its own water sewer, have another source to provide water sewer services, which is available. And if that's the case, it would be proposing to come to the county as to review the development site. And so, again, good meeting there. I think Commissioner Mobley was also in attendance. We, of course, it was not a meeting for us, so we there for observing and hearing and listening. That's all that happened. This time around was a much different meeting than the first one. This was a lot of the families that have the property that was recommending, making their points of why they believe this is a good project for the county and so forth. So there's a lot of positive conversations about it. But the point that really stuck to me, with me when this was all said and done, is a comment that was made there, and that was the fact that Baker County is changing. Baker County is going to change. It's either going to be changed in a manner by which we have some control over it, or it's going to be changed in small increment pieces that we don't. And I kind of liken it to the fact that Baker County is going to change. It's like a vehicle. The vehicle is the change. And we can be in one of three different positions. We can be sitting in the driver's seat, directing, guiding the change, the speed at which it changes, the direction it's moving, and so forth, in that position. Or you can be sitting in the back seat complaining about the way it's going, but you're sitting there safe and complaining the whole time. Or you can be sitting and ignore everything and be in the back getting drugged down the road by it. Now me, I much prefer to be in the driver's seat. Now, I have no intention, if the city wants to step up and lead the project, that is certainly their prerogative. I have no qualms about that. But either way, that would entail us having some involvement with it, because while the city does provide fire services and water and sewer, they do not have an EMS staff. They do not have a police department. So it does come back to the county to have to work with those issues. And so there'd be some taxes there. But again, the project right now is still being, apparently is still being discussed at the city level. I don't know if they have another meeting scheduled or what their intentions are going to be with that, but just stay tuned, because see what they're going to do. Okay. So that's that. My last item is one, and I'm glad the clerk come back in, and it follows back up on the conversation we had about the MOU with the clerk's office dealing with control, and it'll come up again tonight. And there's still this issue of who is having control of the systems and servers and giving access and so forth. And I will tell you at this point, I have absolutely no intentions of approving something that we have zero access or control over a system, especially given the fact that tonight our audits hasn't been completed and so forth on the county's portion of the thing. But I do expect the county, between Sarah and Clint, to work with the clerk's office to find a solution that gives them any access they need and not limiting them having the ability to do the job. So I would expect by the next meeting having something back to this board on what steps are being taken and having a conversation with the clerk's office about that to get something that we can all work with. This cannot be this my way and only way. There's got to be something that can work, and it's never one-sided, it's always two-sided. But there's got to be a way to get to a happy median that ensures that we have the appropriate ability to access what we need to, but there's also accountability with access as well. And if there's a violation of that accountability and there's actions being done in that system that shouldn't be done, then I expect action to be taken to address it immediately. But there is this current approach that I've got to have either full control or no control. There's an alternate way to be able to do that. So I'd ask that you to work with the clerk's office to come up with a solution to be able to address that and figure a way that we can work things. Because what cannot continue to happen is it be said again like it was tonight, that my people can't access the system, that they can only come into the office to access it. If the clerk is responsible for certain things, they ought to have access to certain things that they can do to make sure they can perform their job, and that the clerk can perform her responsible duties as well. So there's got to be a happy medium to that. So I'd ask that by the next meeting, have something back to this board that's been worked through with the clerk's office for this board to be able to review and make sure that we're good with that approach.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Mann?
One thing, I do look forward to getting the quote to do the survey that we talked about last meeting for the fire assessment and impact fees. I think that's important for where we are today. As these developments Commissioner Bennett spoke so eloquently about, it's important that we take a stand now rather than later, before the county does start making changes. So I just look forward to getting that quote back.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Commissioner Hartley.
Only a couple of things. Baker Correctional, have we heard anything on that? I know I hadn't brought that up in a while, but I'm not letting it die.
No, sir, I have not. I would actually be curious if Rich, are you hearing anything around your office at all? It's actually been very quiet in the last several months. I thought we would hear something.
I've just seen a lot of activity there, cars and vehicles and all sorts of
Training,
stuff.
yes, sir.
That's
A lot of
right.
training.
So they're using it, so I just didn't know if maybe there was some...
I would be more concerned if nobody was there. then they're utilizing it so they still know it's there.
Yeah, okay.
And
And
the
the other
state-
thing is, do you have any updates on the grant for the Historical Society or any grants right now?
No, sir, not yet, but we should have a report for you at your next
Because I
commission
know
meeting.
we're waiting on one with the fairgrounds and everything.
Yes, now the fairgrounds is moving through the state process. We've not heard of it being taken out or anything like that. Chris, I can get with you about that one later. I think we've talked about the fairgrounds a little bit. But there's no cause for concern on the fairgrounds at all at this point. But I'll follow up with you at the next commission meeting on the historic preservation grants, because that's an application process we're in the middle of. Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I have.
All I have, I was, Commissioner Bennett had jumped on what I was going to say, so I will agree with Commissioner Bennett that we need
Certainly.
something to this board by our next meeting. And preferably it needs to be started before our next meeting, but we just needed to have a report on what is being done, that the county and the clerk's office is working in conjunction and not against each other. We're one big family, we got to work together.
Certainly.
There's some members of my brother, I don't like him, but I still work with him. That's a
Tell
joke. I
Jody
love
that
my
now.
brother.
Yeah.
But anyway, we need to move beyond whatever we are in and be professionals and do our, because when all's said and done, we work for the citizens of Baker County. If you got pride, swallow it. If you got hate, swallow it. Whatever you got, get rid of it, and let's work together as a family, because that's what we are here in Baker County anyway. We're all family. And we need to work together and solve all the problems that Baker County has. And the problem we have right now is a March 31st deadline, and I'm going to say it one more time. And I also attended a FEMA workshop, emergency disaster, and they had the wrong thing. They was walking around giving the small counties the microphone, and I said, don't give me the microphone. But anyway, they gave me the microphone, and I told them what I thought, not about FEMA, but what FEMA should do, and it's streamline their aggravating paperwork. Everybody else was going on bragging how much, and FEMA is going to help us, and they're going to help everybody, but it shouldn't be 6 months to 2 years after a disaster that you get help. They can streamline their paperwork. And then when I just started something bad, because then the other counties was saying the same thing. It is crazy Clay County had to submit one report for the same thing 3 times. And that was
But that's the way we've always
for
done
a
it.
project 2 years ago. So I spoke up on behalf of this board and said, just streamline your process and we'll be happy with FEMA. And we had a lot of people that agree with that. And I was happy to hear that John Blanchard and Dennis was on the call, so they was getting informed on all the information. And I'm trying to get us some more information, because there's still more funds out there we can go after. And I'm working with a lady through urban development.
Mhm.
And there's funds out there for water, sewer for the city and stuff like that. So I'm gathering information, and once I get enough to present it to the board, I'll be presenting. And I don't have anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.